Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Mike Graham Show. It's 2 minutes past 7. It's Wednesday, the 28th of January. Talk about being empty-chaired. That was literally the start of the show with an empty chair. A little bit tardy this morning. My apologies to you. Pooch had to go out and put a penny in the meter to keep the electricity going because obviously, you know, the money comes in all sorts of dribs and drabs at the moment. So, you know, we didn't want to run out of electricity. But listen, welcome. It is Wednesday. We're in the middle of the week. Some people call it hump day. I don't like that. I'm not going to call it that. We've got a massive show for you today. It is, of course, as many of you will know, Ziggy's birthday. It is also the opportunity for the first time on this show to question Liz Truss. So she's going to be on, the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. I was on her podcast yesterday, and as a sort of a recompense to that, she's coming into the studio right here in the middle of London to answer our questions, to talk to us about what she thinks is happening in the big wide world, why it is that she got so terribly vilified for ruining the economy when Rachel Thieves, of course Richard III, has done even worse to the economy than ever. I'm just going to put my earpiece in because I completely forgot to do that as well. There's always something, you know. We're going to talk to Stephen Barrett, who's here this morning. He's going to look at the papers for us. Lots and lots of you have got things to say already about what's going on. And as I say, it is a big, big day for all sorts of reasons. Keir Starmer on his way to China, saying that, you know, China's a very important country. What we must do is to make sure that we absolutely have a great relationship with them because they're going to be very useful to us in the future. Which is all well and good for him to say, but we're not all so sure. So we've got a poll going out there today on the YouTube chat, which is the question of which is, who is your favourite dictator? Is it Kim Jong-un? Is it President Xi? Is it Keir Starmer? Or is it Meghan Markle? Right? So far, it looks like Kim Jong-un is coming in at 20%, Meghan Markle 15%, President Xi 7%. So he's actually the worst dictator of all. And the best dictator of all, of course, it's Keir Starmer, coming in at 58% right now. So some of you can go there and vote for that, of course, as well. As I say, it is very much a big day for Ziggy. He's going to be 12 today. You might remember on Monday, we explained to you how dreadful the situation is with him having to now find some other woods to go to because they've now put a road tax, a parking tax on the woods that he wants to go to in Battle, the Battle Great Wood. And so we'll be hearing from Ziggy a little bit later on in the show. Also, we've got lots and lots of great clips for you as well, which we're going to play you out. Front pages as well, very much all about Rachel Reeves putting a nail in the coffin of the High Street. Front page of the Daily Mail, it says, sends a junior to the House of Commons to reveal the betrayal of pubs, hotels and small shops. I was listening to a publican talking this morning on another radio station about the dreadful state of the hospitality business, and basically this kind of reprieve that Rachel Reeves is offering pub owners, he said, was a bit like somebody turning up, breaking your arm and giving you a paracetamol and making you feel, you know, like grateful for being given the paracetamol when you're in terrible, terrible pain. Sun has got Run for the Hills, Katie. They've got a front page story about Katie Price, which I don't care about, frankly. And the Times goes with this. And once again, you have to ask the question, does anybody in the Home Office know what the hell they're doing, right? Because this is a fake jobs for migrant story. Fake jobs for sale to cheat the system on migrant visas. Fake jobs that allow migrants to stay in Britain unlawfully are being sold for up to £20,000 as part of a fraudulent scheme to obtain work visas. A secret filming investigation by the Times has exposed, right? Basically, criminal networks are targeting migrants at risk of deportation, offering to arrange skilled worker visas for jobs that don't exist. I mean, how stupid do you have to be to work in the government? It really is extraordinary, isn't it? We're going to tell you as well about a police officer who's scared of police stations, who, believe it or not, is actually going to be suing the police in order to win some compensation. It's absolutely extraordinary. Anyway, listen, why don't we go straight away to Stephen Barrett, our favourite barrister, and a man who is, of course, the custodian of all things containing common sense. Stephen, a very good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Good morning to you. I'm very well.
Excellent. We're going to have a sort of quick run through some of the stories in the papers. Shall we kick off with Keir Starmer going to China? Because I think that's probably the main event of the day. I'm waiting with bated breath to watch the supplicant Prime Minister of a once great nation getting down on his hands and knees, begging China to give us some money, which I find almost disgusting, actually.
Well, it is. It is disgusting. And The best you can say is that Keir Starmer has done all of this in order to try and get some money out of China. The worst you can say is to suspect that he might have a relationship with them that isn't entirely legal. We'll see in the years to come. It's not seemly. It's not done. I don't know what's happened to our nation. And let's be nice to Keir Starmer. Let's have some balance on that. I also don't understand what the Conservative Party was doing. I don't
Yeah.
understand what the Conservative Party was doing in 2018 when it sold the land that this embassy is going to be built on to China.
Right.
I don't understand what the Conservative Party was doing when it started the talks on the Chagos Islands debacle. Both parties seem in hock to this utterly reprehensible totalitarian regime. I mean, they really there's not a nice word you can say really about China. It's a totally oppressive place. If viewers are interested, there's a man called Lord Alton who's very, very good. You can Google him and have a look at his Twitter. He's very good on what China's up to and all of the wrong things. They've imprisoned an entirely innocent man, unsurprisingly. And what is our Prime Minister doing, going over there and sucking up to them and begging to them? What is he doing? Why is he there?
Well, I mean, not only that, right? That's one story that you could ask about as to why he's there. The second story you could ask about is, given what came out yesterday in the Daily Telegraph, that basically, successive Downing Street regimes, if you want to call them that, have been bugged by Chinese military and Chinese intelligence, and they've been listening in on telephone calls between special advisors to prime ministers, going all the way back to Theresa May, certainly Rishi Sunak, probably Boris Johnson. So, they're actively spying against us. Similarly, you could ask the question, what's happened to their chief of their military, who's apparently disappeared amongst stories that he may have been giving secrets to the US of A. There are so many things that he could say when he gets there, but he won't say any of those things, will he?
No, he won't, because he's a spineless coward. The fact is that we collapsed, they collapsed, he collapsed the case against the alleged Chinese spies because he was unwilling to say that China is our enemy, yet they spy upon us.
Right.
I mean, this is just, it's just utterly ridiculous. What is the point of being a country if we're just going to keep giving in?
Yeah,
I mean that has to be asked, and then we have to ask Mike about the entirety of the West, because Canada seems in hock to China too.
Right.
They've just let them purchase a gold mine in Canada. They're pledging allegiance to them, and everybody's trying to be very anti-American. And we really have to question what on earth is going on when American lives were lost in our defense.
Yeah.
American soldiers, one of the few peoples to actually die in the cause of our freedom. And what we're turning on them now, are we? We're turning our back on these people, our greatest ever allies, for what? This evil, tyrannical, communist regime.
Yeah.
It just smacks of convenient communism, Mike.
It does, doesn't it? And this is where we now find ourselves, don't we? Because the hatred for Donald Trump is so visceral and so ridiculous that we find ourselves cozying up to dictators. I mean, it's a slightly tongue-in-cheek poll that we've got going on this morning, but we've got, who's the biggest dictator of all. And Starmer beats President Xi hands down. Because here's a guy who not only wants to stop you from voting in your local council elections, he also wants to stop anybody who might take over from him as leader of the Labour Party from standing in an ordinary by-election. He also wants to make sure that your facial recognition camera is in your street to stop you from doing anything. And poor old Idris Elba even has now been victimised for doing 28 miles per hour on a moped in a 20 mile an hour zone in London, which used to be a 30 mile an hour zone in London. And we are now living in a sort of, pretty well, I would say, communist state where you get taxed more, you get less freedom than you used to have. You're not allowed to say what you want to say because you might get arrested for it. It's quite ridiculous, isn't it?
Yes, and I think we do have to point out that we're living in a communist state. Mums on Twitter are arrested.
Yeah.
Paedophiles walk free. These are not things to ignore.
Right.
When your country's trying to tell you what it is, that's time to pay attention and notice. Our Prime Minister is a petty man. He is, Mike, I mean, I'm not scared of him. I find him quite pathetically weak.
Yes.
I mean, Keir Starmer is afraid of Andy Burnham, and I'm afraid
Right.
any grown man who's afraid of Andy Burnham is pretty pathetic in my view. And that's no insults to the Diddy and Andy Burnham,
Right.
who I'm sure is perfectly sweet. But he's not.
I think
he's
he
not
should go back to his old job as a member of New Order and just get on with the music, you know.
Well, I mean, the entire thing is utterly pathetic, and this is what we're doing. We're living in a sort of tyranny. We are living in a tyranny,
Yeah.
and it does do tyrannical and awful things. We mustn't forget Lucy Connolly, and we mustn't forget that it does tyrannical and awful things. But it is still nonetheless fundamentally weak. It's fundamentally pathetic. It's not impressive on any level, which is why our Prime Minister is down on his knees begging for China this morning.
Yes, exactly right. Let me play you a little clip from yesterday because this, I think, sums up the state of the nation quite well. It's a clip from LBC, not a radio station I would normally watch, to be honest. Paul Mason, who is one of the sort of old school lefties, was on there with Andrew Gold yesterday talking about racism. Check this out.
I'm proud of this. We have the leader of the opposition party is a woman, who's Nigerian in origin and is black. And we had a Home Secretary who was black under the Conservatives, and we've now got a Home Secretary who's a Muslim under Labour. What a brilliant country this is. It's reform and it's politics of hate that wants to tear that all apart. So although I will fight Kemi Badenoch's Tory party tooth and nail on policy, I will always say, let's celebrate the fact that we're all part of a political setup that still stigmatises racism, that still stigmatises extremism of the right and the left. The people leaving are the people who are always borderline or explicit racists, and that's the whole racist party.
Danny Kruger, I think that's really unfair.
Sorry, I think Danny Kruger, National Conservative, he's laid it all out.
But Suella's a racist?
Well, the Rwanda scheme was racist. Absolutely.
We're talking about politicians right now, and you're the only one that's been talking about their skin colour.
No, I'll tell you why I'm talking about their skin colour, because I'm very, very proud of this country being able to have people of multi-ethnic and multi-faith, because I grew up in a white society that was racist, and I know how hard.
But you think this society is racist?
I know, yes, I do, and I'll tell you why.
How do we have leaders of parties who have different colours?
Because people like me have fought racism for decades. What have you done?
Well, I've not been alive for that many decades.
You're just a podcaster, aren't you? You're just a podcaster.
Well, I don't judge people by their skin colour. That's something I can say.
Fight racism.
I can say that I don't judge
people. Tell me what you've done in your life to fight racism.
Even if we try, Paul, even if we try and pretend that what you said wasn't explicitly racist, okay, let's say it wasn't racist by judging people by their skin colour. Okay, I just want to say
I'm judging Kemi Badenoch by her performance
and her skin colour.
By her politics. I've said it's brilliant that we have a black leader of the opposition.
Right. Okay, so you admit that. Okay, good. Well, we know that what you said. In my opinion, that's racist. But okay.
I mean, that pretty much sums up the state of play in this country, doesn't it, Stephen? Because there you have Paul Mason, a self-confessed pretty much communist, who only wants to talk about people's skin colour. He thinks it's marvellous that we've got a black leader of the Tory party. He thinks it's amazing that we had an Asian Prime Minister when Rishi Sunak was in charge. He doesn't think that Suella Braverman, however, is a good choice, even though she's also brown. I mean, how ridiculous was that whole conversation?
Well, I think it's an important conversation, and I think it's an important one to keep watching, because it just shows how intellectually moribund, that means bankrupt, they are. They are completely dead in the water. Yeah. And these people who say that they're terribly keen to fight racism are racist. Yes. And they're using racist language. And all we need to do, Mike, and this is probably the only reason I exist in public life, is that I am obsessed with defining words.
Right.
Let's have clear definitions of words. Let's have a clear definition of what racist is. If we have a clear definition of what racist is that we know in advance, then all of us who don't want to be racist, and I'm not a racist and I don't want to say anything, it's just not part of my life. Yeah. Then as long as we have a clear definition, we can know exactly what we're saying. Right. But to celebrate people based on their skin color is as bad as to damn people based upon their skin color.
Yeah.
And it's just bloody skin color. It's no different from hair color or eye color. It doesn't matter. No one cares. Nobody sane gives a damn about any of this stuff. It's just not a relevant part of our life. And what's really offensive to me in that piece, by the communist who endorses Kemi Badenoch, is the idea that he says he grew up in a racist society. I don't think he did. I don't think he did, Mike, because we fought against Nazi Germany in the Second World War because they were racist and we weren't.
Yes.
Because they invented, and racism itself is a relatively new idea. It was their idea, and it was obviously stupid. And what Britain did during that period was look at them, go, sorry, what, you're trying to say that human beings are good or bad based upon what?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, that doesn't work. You people are obviously wrong.
Yeah. And insane and dangerous. And people like Paul Mason, in my view, are insane and dangerous. I've met Paul Mason. I know what he's like. You know, he's a man that sits in a green room and sort of chunters onto himself, doesn't talk to people. He's not what you might call sociable because he can't be, because he's so eaten up by his own hatred of himself and of what goes on around him, that he's actually not a perfunctory human being. There's something wrong with him, right? And he's just illustrated that very well by explaining how he believes that it's wonderful to live in a country where people have got different skin colour. I mean, you might as well say, isn't it great to live in a world where some people are left-handed? You know, it's idiotic, isn't it? It's mad.
But it's utterly pathetic, Mike. I mean, you and I have different hair colour. Does that make us diverse? Is that something to be celebrated?
Diversity of hair colour is our strength.
Morally good. I mean, they're just ridiculous. They are intellectually dead in the water.
Yeah.
But for Paul Mason, you can substitute Keir Starmer. I mean, these people believe exactly the same rubbish.
Yes.
Don't forget, it wasn't very long ago that they were banging on and on about how fantastic it was to have a female chancellor.
Yes.
I don't give a toss whether we have a female or a male chancellor. I care about whether the chancellor's competent.
Yeah.
And this
unfortunately,
is not competent.
I've got some bad news. Yes, she's not competent at all. Richard III, as we like to call her. But this is the other thing that Paul Mason sort of forgets. And they do this thing, which is this ridiculous kind of chanting. What have you done to stop racism? And you kind of go, I haven't really done anything. I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know I was supposed to do something to stop racism. I mean, what can you answer that question with, you know?
It's absolutely insane. They are cultists. I think it's a replacement religion, Mike.
Yeah.
But it goes down very dark paths very quickly. So we don't just have to laugh at these people. We have to very seriously ensure that they don't take power.
Yes.
You know, there's nothing to celebrate about the identity of a person. It doesn't really matter. In a sane civilization, we don't care.
No.
Why would you care? We should care, as Dr. Martin Luther King said, about the character of a person, about what they achieve, about what their merits are and their abilities. That's it. And I think we are really at the end of our tether with these chanting people who allegedly are anti-racist, who end up being more racist than those of us who are the normal people, because they go down these rabbit holes. Just stop it. Just go away. We don't care about anybody's identity anymore. We just care about whether or not they're competent. That has to be the line, Mike. It just has to be.
Absolutely. And we should point out that I think it was a couple of elections ago, Paul Mason decided that he wanted to become a Labour Party candidate in a particular area, and he got nowhere near the shortlist, never mind actually getting to the election. So he's about as unpopular as some dog shit on the bottom of your shoe. Pardon me for swearing at this time of the morning. But, you know, the guy is absolutely and utterly reprehensible. And if it was up to me, I would say, you know, put him on the radio every single day. Put him on, I'll try and get him on my show every single day to highlight how stupid he is. And the difference between me and him is that if it was him, he'd be saying I should be banned from being on the radio or the television because I might be a racist.
Yes, that's what they do, Mike.
Yeah.
And actually, all credit to Anthony Gold yesterday, because that performance he gave was absolutely stellar.
Absolutely.
Many of us do. and this is what they've done to us. They've done to us this for years because we're not racists. We don't want to be called a racist. So many of us have this sort of, and I've fallen down this. I'm not blaming anyone at all. I am as much to blame as everybody else. I have not wanted to be falsely accused of being a racist. So you end up acting in an odd way because you're terrified of being falsely accused of being a racist.
Yes.
But I am now fed up of this. I am fed up of these people. It's just a means of controlling you, getting you to say what they want you to say, and they can go boil their fat heads, and we're not going to be racist, and we're only going to care about the merits of a person.
Yes.
That's all we should have ever cared about. And by the way, whilst caring about the merits of a person, the Chancellor is completely incompetent. The Prime Minister is completely incompetent. Most of this cabinet are completely useless, and I don't care which skin colour any of them have.
Absolutely right. Let's move on to a couple of other stories in the papers this morning, because I want your view particularly on this one, because it's again about our illustrious Prime Minister who's on his way to China. And it's a story on the front page of the Daily Telegraph which says Starmer led a witch hunt against Iraq veterans. It says the Prime Minister's human rights case opened the door to hundreds of soldiers being persecuted. And wouldn't you know it, it's the old combination of Lord Hermer, the man who is our Attorney General, that you and I both, I think, have the same view about, a human rights specialist, and Keir Starmer, when he was working as a lawyer, working for free, basically, to persecute British soldiers who went to Iraq because they were ordered to do so by their military bosses and by the government, going after them for war crimes and doing it for free. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about this man, doesn't it?
Yeah, and let's not forget, because I think Labour will hide this, those veterans were sent to fight in Iraq by a Labour government.
Yes.
Okay, that's who did that. That's who sent them there. And what do the Labour people then do? They turn around and immediately betray them.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Yeah.
And that's because, Mike, it's become fashionable amongst these people, amongst lefty lawyers, to hate the country and to want to persecute anybody who does something like fight in its defense, our veterans. Let's be absolutely honest about who these people are. I mean, so when I first joined social media 6 years ago, you weren't even allowed to say lefty lawyers, because immediately the lefty lawyers jumped on you and said, we're not lefties, we're just independent lawyers doing our duty and doing our nonsense. By acting pro bono, which is just a fancy word for free, Keir Starmer chose to oppress and persecute our veterans for no reason other than that's what the left wing believe in. Yeah. All he wanted to do was signal to his fellow lefties that he was a committed lefty. That's all Lord Hermer, who I often call Lord Hamster, because he does look like Penfold. He does. Yeah.
I call him Lord Harmer because of all the harm he causes, actually.
Well, and I do it quite deliberately, Mike, because Churchill pointed out that totalitarians, authoritarians, which is what these people are, the controlling people, they can't be laughed at. They can't bear to be laughed at. So we should laugh at them at all points. Yeah. I don't mind anyone laughing at me. I've got completely mental hair. I don't mind. You know, none of these things matter, because I'm not a totalitarian, controlling weirdo. Right. But they are. And the reason that Keir Starmer and Lord Hermer persecuted our veterans wasn't even really to persecute our veterans. It was just to signal to fellow lefties that they're fully committed to the cause. That's all they do. This is it's a psychosis in humanity. And it never really goes away, Mike. We have to accept that. The great delusion is that we pretend it's gone away. We pretended, you're old enough, I'm old enough to remember when we pretended that the Soviet Union had gone away, that communism had gone away. That's what we do. We pretend it's gone away every time. It never goes away. It always comes back. It's the eternal fight, the eternal struggle. We're going to have to fight communism again, and we're going to have to fight it soon, because at the moment in our country, it's winning.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And what's really disgusting about this particular story and the way that Keir Starmer volunteered his services for free to persecute British soldiers who had put their lives on the line is that not only did they pursue people who were wrongly accused of things, but they actively and willfully pursued people on the basis of evidence that was actually untrue. The Telegraph highlights a case here of a British soldier who had already been cleared twice of murder over the death of an Iraqi man in 2003, basically telling judges that earlier investigations had been perfunctory and wholly inadequate. The soldier in question, Sergeant Richie Catterall, was wrongly pursued for 13 years before an independent judge ruled that he had acted in self-defence, and the allegations cited by Sir Keir Starmer were found to be based in part on a false document which was intended wholly to pin the blame on British troops. So they were actively cooking up a case against British troops who had willfully gone to do their duty at the behest of, as you say, a Labour government, only to be betrayed by the same one.
Yes, lefty lawyers committed fraud in order to persecute and oppress our veterans.
Yeah.
And Sergeant Cotterill deserves all of our respect. In a perfect world, Mike, I think we'd give him an honour.
Yeah.
And I think we'd do something to respect him. I want your listeners and viewers to understand just how traumatic litigation is. So I used to do litigation for a living. It wasn't traumatic for me because it's my job and that's what I did. But people involved in it, obviously they don't sleep before court hearings.
Right.
Obviously they don't. Obviously they don't really sleep after court hearings because they're so hyper. It is a very draining process, and to be in that for 13 years, I think Sergeant Cotterill is a hero of a man just to endure that.
Yes,
I mean, I used to have a little thing that I did whenever I finished a case with somebody, which is I'd shake their hands and I'd look them right in the eye and I'd say, "I hope you never see me again,"
right?
Because to see if they saw me, it meant that they were in litigation again. And I wish that they could live a life free of litigation. It's a very, very destructive thing.
Yeah.
Criminal litigation, where you might lose your freedom, you might be, damned by society as a wrong 'un. When you're somebody like Sergeant Cotterill, who was fought in defence of your country, so you're actually you are a noble knight of this realm, whether we recognise it or not. That's what he is. He is a hero of our country. To be damned, to be oppressed in this way is just utterly cruel and vicious. But this is who the left are now.
Yeah.
Let nobody avoid this. Let nobody pretend that the left wing care about people, have any emotions, are in any way nice. They are petty, destructive bureaucrats. What a concept I call, Mike, lawful evil. That's what they are. They use rules and laws to oppress people and commit evil. And you can do that. It's not nice and it's vicious, but that's what they are. That's what these people are.
They really are. And it's kind of a soulless existence that they have as well, isn't it? Because they're such ideologues that they can't see love. They can't see, friendship. They can't see anything other than just their ideological obsession with whatever it is that they happen to be, going after that particular day. Look at Rachel Reeves on the front page of the Daily Mail today, basically putting to death the high street. That's the words that they use in the headline. Reeves puts the nail in the coffin. And I was talking to somebody this morning about this. Pub owners particularly, who have been given a sort of slight reprieve from the business rates that are going through the roof, which are about to close, I think, probably 1,000 pubs over the course of the next year. Basically saying it's a bit like somebody coming round to your house, breaking your arm, giving you a paracetamol for the pain and making you say that you're grateful for them helping you. That's what it's like.
Yeah. But this is what these people are, Mike. And you're absolutely right to use the word soulless.
Yeah.
I don't remember us being a very publicly religious country, so I'm always mildly embarrassed to sort of talk about it at all. But I'm a Christian, and that means that I care about people. I think everybody is equal. I think all of us are beautiful souls, and I think we probably do need to use this stuff and to start talking about this language. Otherwise, you end up like Rachel Reeves. I mean, look at her. What is the point of her? I mean, just a total waste of time. And she's hurting people and destroying the economy. And the entire thing is an absolute car crash. Yeah, she's rode back 15%. So she did 100% damage, and now she's promising to only do 85% damage. Right. It's just pathetic.
Well, it's like somebody mugging you, isn't it? Right? And they take your wallet, they take your watch, they take your handbag, and then they give you back a couple of quid and go, there's your bus fare home. Exactly.
That is exactly what it is, Mike. And it is as reprehensible. She has absolutely no authority to do this. They're never acting within their manifesto, and they are just trashing the country. The real question, Mike, is, because I'm going to have to leave you soon, but the real question is, how long can this government last? Because it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
It's got no ideas. It's begging to China whilst hurting the rest of us.
Yeah,
How
it is
long
absolutely
does it last?
staggering. And just one final thing, I know you have to rush off, and I'm really grateful for you spending time with us this morning. The number of migrants brought into Britain under Labour's one-in, one-out deal with France is 25% higher than the total who have been removed. So once again...
Of course it is. Of course it is,
They
Mike.
have done the magic trick in reverse.
Of course it is. But we've got to accept that they want the migrants. There is no other answer than that Labour want the migrants.
Yeah.
He promised to smash the gangs. They've been in office for nearly 2 years now. They've done absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
They want the migrants. Grow up, Britain. Realize that these people just lie. That's all they do. They just lie to you. And so you can only judge them by their actions. And just realize what they do. They want these migrants. They are trying to terrorize us. Look at Crowborough. They have imported 500 random, potentially dangerous men in order to traumatize an entire community. That community is going to be absolutely terrified. That's what they want, Mike. They are terrorizing us. They want us scared. They want us controlled. They want to be able to threaten us by calling us racists when we're obviously not racist. And that's all that these people do. They are petty, vicious, dangerous people who should never have been anywhere near power, and we should make sure that the Labour Party in particular is never in office again.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll finish with a fantastic image there just appeared on the screen from one of our listeners and viewers who says Starmer won't stop the boats, but he will stop the votes.
Good.
Well,
Good.
One of the great...
I think the Labour Party should die. And it's sad for people like, I got to shake the MP Graham Stringer's hand.
Yeah.
It's sad for, you and I think we're both close to Claire Fox. We've got friends on the left. It's sad for them, but the Labour Party needs to die because whatever this thing is, it's just vicious, pathetic, petty and venal, and it can't carry on. We're not going down this road. We're not going to have a dictator. Thank you very much. Go away.
Yes, brilliant. Stephen, so great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a very, very lovely Wednesday. I can't believe it's Wednesday already, but here we are. 7:34, Stephen Barrett. Great man, fantastic barrister, not the kind of barrister that Keir Starmer is, who would actually like to go and brutalise and prosecute British soldiers for going to Iraq and getting involved in deadly affairs, which mean that sometimes people get killed. But instead of siding with the soldiers, they side with the enemy, and they become the enemy, and they prosecute people because they are the enemy of the people. Keir Starmer, quite frankly, is the enemy of the people. He's gone to China to cozy up to a dictator. We've got a poll out there this morning, and I want to hear your voting pattern on it, because we've asked who is the biggest dictator of all time. Is it Keir Starmer? Is it President Xi? Is it Kim Jong-un from North Korea? Or is it, just with our tongue slightly in our cheek, Meghan Markle? At the moment, Keir Starmer is absolutely and utterly winning it, hands down. Let's do some super chats, because we've got lots of them coming in to us this morning. Thank you very much indeed for all of you for getting in touch, because we've got loads of things to talk about this morning. Don't forget, it is Ziggy's 12th birthday. We'll be celebrating that in a moment. Super chat from Martin, who says, "Hi Mike, love the show. On this day, can you believe today is the 40th anniversary of the Challenger disaster?" That's amazing. Funnily enough, I remember that very, very well. We'll talk about that in a second. One from Amanda, who says, "Happy birthday, Ziggy. A little treat for your treats." And one from Panda, who says, "Happy birthday, Ziggy. Also, congratulations to Matt Goodwin on his nomination as Reform's candidate for Gorton and Denton. Great show, Mike." And Hev says, "PMQs, not PMQ&As. Because he never answers." Well, of course, PMQs today will not be with Keir Starmer in attendance. I presume it will be with that moron, David Lammy. What they should do is say, the first question, if I was Kemi Badenoch, right, here's what I would do. I would get up in the chamber when they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Kemi Badenoch, leader of the opposition," I would say, "Who succeeded Henry VII when..." can we play that? Oh, we can actually, can't we? Yeah, I could do that. Where are we? Lammy, here. Have a listen. Is that working? I can't hear anything.
No, sorry.
It's not working. Oh, well, never mind. But, you remember when old David Lammy appeared on Mastermind and he got every question wrong apart from the ones he passed on? One of the ones that he got wrong, and a super chat from Simon, thank you very much indeed. One of the ones he got wrong was when they said who succeeded Henry VII, or who succeeded Henry VIII, I think, after he was no longer the king. And basically, he said Henry VII, who was obviously before Henry VIII. I mean, just incredible. But anyway, so there's no Keir Starmer at PMQs today. And going back to the Challenger disaster, by the way, I remember that because I was in New York at the time, and it was around about, just about before a newspaper called Today was launching, and I'd been hired to be Today's correspondent in New York. And so we were doing what they used to call in those days dummy runs. And so you'd produce a dummy newspaper to see if you could do it before it actually launched. And it was the week, I think it was the week before or 2 days before the actual launch of the newspaper. So I was tasked to try and get some comments and some quotes around that Challenger disaster story. And I was forced or asked to see if I could track down any of the men that walked on the moon. Couldn't get a hold of Buzz Aldrin. But I was able to get hold of Neil Armstrong, right? And Neil Armstrong was at that point a professor in a college in somewhere in the Midwest, I think Chicago, University of Chicago or something like that. And it was my kids say to me now, they're like, how do you track these people down? I don't even know. I don't even remember how easy it was or how difficult it was to do. But I was sitting in my apartment in New York. I got on the phone, somehow tracked him down, somehow rang the college, and asked to be put through to Neil Armstrong. And I mean, this is how easy it was in those days, I suppose, to reach people. Phone rang. Hello. I said, hi, is that Neil Armstrong? Yeah. Is that the Neil Armstrong that walked on the moon? Yeah. Because I wanted to make sure it wasn't the wrong Neil Armstrong. Obviously, that would be wrong. And I said, look, I'm terribly sorry to bother you, but obviously there's been a terrible accident in space. The Challenger space shuttle has just taken off and it's blown up on its ascent into the heavens. And I just wondered if I could talk to you about it for a little while. And I don't want to talk about it. I said, look, I realise that, it's a very difficult time. And if you're an astronaut, it probably brings back terrible memories. But, in the end, it would be really good if we could hear from you, from your perspective of what it's like to actually be in a rocket that's going up into space and you don't really know what's happening. He's like, I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, I kept going, as you do, 3 or 4 times, asked him a few questions, tried to get him to come around. And in the end, he just went, why don't you just F off? But he actually said the word, and I was like, and he slammed the phone down. And I was like, Neil Armstrong, the man that walked on the moon, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, it's just told me to F off. I was quite impressed, actually. It's one of those stories that you tell as you go. Anyway, listen, 7:40. We've got lots to do. This from Mike, who says, good morning, Mike. Loving Stephen this morning and a happy birthday, Ziggy. Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we celebrate Ziggy's birthday? Because he is 12 today, notwithstanding the fact that he can't go to his favourite woods for his birthday, because we talked about that on Monday. Notwithstanding that, and we might even play that video again, we're going to play you a little video montage of Ziggy and how wonderful and beautiful a dog he is. He's my all-time favourite Labrador. He's 12 years old. Somebody actually said earlier, is it 12 dog years or 12 human years? It's 12 human years, obviously, which makes him about 85, I think. But before we do that, let's get the news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. Here's the news for today, Wednesday, 28th of January. I'm Edward Hughes, suffering a bit after a big night last night. Britain is still reeling from Storm Chandra, the third monster storm to slam us this January. Torrential rain smashed January records. Rivers burst banks. Flash floods swamped Devon and the southwest. Roads vanished underwater. Trains ground to a halt. And police are begging people, don't travel unless you absolutely have to. If you're in the West Country, stay high and dry. It's chaos out there. Meanwhile, Prime Minister two-tier Keir Starmer jets off to Beijing today in a bold, high-stakes move. The first UK leader there since 2018. He's taking big business names like Airbus, AstraZeneca and HSBC, chasing trade deals, investment and tech ties with China, all while carefully dodging any drama with an unpredictable Washington. No choosing sides, he says, but everyone's watching. Remember to mention human rights and spying to President Xi. Pubs get a lifeline with new government support packages amid sky-high costs. 5 controversial IPP prisoners head to the Court of Appeal, and vets could soon have to display clear prices for pet treatments to tackle those eye-watering bills. And of course, it's Ziggy's birthday today. So, happy birthday, Ziggy, from the news and production team. I'm sure the viewers will be sending in some lovely messages. That's your UK roundup. Wrap up, avoid flooded roads, and let's hope calmer weather is on the way. I'm off for a lie down. Laters, Tigers.
Yeah, thanks, Edward Hughes. When you say the news and production team, what do you mean exactly? I mean, I've been telling you we've got a team of any kind. Also, he makes a reference there to Storm Chundra. Every time I hear that word, I think of Chunder. I just think of Storm Chunder and somebody actually throwing up. Probably I shouldn't be thinking that way, but there we are. Lots of you have got lots of great messages coming in. Thank you very much indeed. Lots of you are very much in appreciation of Stephen Barrett, who is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. We're going to try and make sure that we get him an awful lot. Mike, I like your suit. You look like Trump, says Lord Viking Live. Yeah, this is nice, isn't it? It's got a little, over there, no, it's over here, little red buttonhole, which of course is matching my red tie. Shall we sing Happy Birthday to Ziggy, Mike, says Lord Viking. I think you should, yeah. Before we go anywhere and before we talk to our next guest, Chris Rose, who's going to be joining us very shortly, let us actually celebrate Ziggy's 12th birthday. Have a look at this. Now that is one beautiful puppy, and that's me holding him. We've got a whole series of things. This has all been put together lovingly by my children's mother, and this is Ziggy through the years. He's such a beautiful dog. I just look at him and just want to hold it. There he is with some wood. There he is with one of his good friends, Boris. There he is with a Happy New Year. There he is in the sea. There's Boris again. There he is in Scotland with those, and he loves going to the beach. There he is with some ice cream. And of course, you can see that little star around his neck, and he's got some slippers on. He's got a little star around his neck that says Ziggy on it. He loves going in the woods. He loves going in the water. He's a Labrador. Doesn't really know what the snow's like very much. I'm not sure where that one is. There's Boris again, his friend, the Black Labrador. He's just the most beautiful dog. He's just so much fun. He's been great with the kids. The kids love him massively. And he is just, for those of you, Pooch is sighing alongside me here, because when you've got dogs, you just love them. It's just amazing. He's so beautiful and he's so lovely. I'll be seeing him on Friday when I go back down there. So happy birthday, Ziggy. Well done for reaching the grand old age of 12. And I know, because I bought a load of them, that you're going to be getting loads of treats. And I think his mummy's even going to make him a cake today, which I think is probably going to be a carrot cake of some kind, which he's rather fond of. He's basically rather fond of anything that he can eat, because he eats all day. And he would eat all day if he could. Very happy birthday. Present-wise, I mean, we basically said, oh yes, and this of course is, you've got a stick, I think, haven't you?
Yeah.
And tell us about that picture, Pooch. That's George.
He wanted to use £2 of his pocket money.
There we are.
To
Look
go
at that.
To the woods.
Look at this.
To get Ziggy a stick.
He got Ziggy a stick from the woods, George, and that is one of the most beautiful presents, I think, and I'll take that to him. He'll love that. That's brilliant. Pooch, of course, a great aficionado of dogs, and a man who knows the most important things in life. And this was lovely. This was Paul W. who put this together for us, as Ziggy with a bunch of his friends. Normally speaking, he would have taken them all to the woods, but of course, not allowed to now because the bleeding Forestry Commission had put a tax on parking. The scumbags. But there we are. Lots and lots of great messages coming in. This one from Canastria about Mike's tie. That's not being pedantic. It's an important sartorial point, and might make Mike look sloppy. What's the point about the tie then? Has somebody got a problem with the tie? Is there a problem with the tie? I don't know. I hope Kemi roasts Lammy, says Phil. Well, I think the thing is, when Lammy is at Prime Minister's questions, it means that the Deputy Leader of the Opposition will have to question the Deputy Prime Minister, so I presume that will probably be Chris Philp. Enjoy your cake, Ziggy. Beautiful, says Idiomation. Stephen is a great guest and a great man, says Lou. And one here from Canastria again. A road that skirts around a town is called by what? Don't know. Happy birthday, Ziggy, says Stephen. Lumpen Lammy needs to have his British passport removed from his dual passport with Guyana. And Jimmy says, Star Mother Harmer needs to go forth and multiply. Fantastic show, Mike. Happy birthday, Ziggy. Yes, absolutely right. I'm still not sure what the comment was about my tie, but if you're going to say my tie's crooked, which is what people say quite often, it's funny. Whenever you try and straighten a tie, it actually sometimes looks more crooked than it did at the beginning. Could be a pedant of the day scenario. Sticks are dangerous for dogs, says Focus on Britain. I mean, I'm sick to death of people that say that. Yeah. Sticks are dangerous for dogs. Well, I'll tell you what's dangerous for dogs. There's people who don't know anything about bloody dogs who tell me that sticks are dangerous for dogs. Dogs love sticks, right? Ziggy would take a stick and run with it. There was a time when before he worked out how to get sticks through gates, that he wouldn't be able to go through gates with sticks because they would stick on the outside. The bottom line is that Ziggy knows how to deal with a stick. He also knows how to deal with a bone. And the people who, these kind of numbnuts people who say, don't give them a stick, it could fracture in their throat. Don't give them a chicken bone. Don't give them a lamb bone. Look, we've had dogs for a long time. There he is. Have you seen the size of that stick, for heaven's sake? And also, just bugger off. Stop giving advice to people that haven't asked for it. When you play golf, if you get unsolicited advice, you can actually claim the hole, right? If somebody comes up to you and says, you shouldn't have hit that 4-iron, you should have hit a 3-iron, or why don't you hit a 3-iron? Unsolicited advice, you lose the hole. I think that should be the way it goes in life. If somebody comes up to you and gives you advice about something that you're not doing, you should basically tell them to get lost, and you should completely and utterly ignore them. Ziggy says, thank you very much for the stick. We've got a message here from Ziggy's mum. He's very excited to see it. I'll take it down to you on Friday, which will be lovely. Listen, anyway, all right, let's go to the next guest. Chris Rose is here. First time ever on the Mike Graham Show. Chris, very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on, and
Not at
happy
all.
birthday to Ziggy as well.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Lots to talk about this morning. Keir Starmer off to China. Just before I ask you about it, have a look at what he says he thinks he's going to go and do. We've got a clip.
This is the first trip by a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom to China for 8 years. And we've got 60 CEOs of businesses and cultural organisations coming with us to drum up business, take opportunities and deliver for the United Kingdom. So just about to leave now.
Just about to leave now. His voice has got even more weird since the last time we heard from him. We're going to China for the first time in 8 years. I mean, it's not as if we need China to be friends with us, right? We know that China is a malevolent force. We know that President Xi doesn't really have any good things to say about Britain. We're giving them permission to build an embassy in London, which is likely to become a real thorn in the side of business, a real thorn in the side of British intelligence. People don't want it here. They've already made a couple of people disappear. They've locked people up. He's not going to say anything. Why is he so keen on China, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, when he said we're going to deliver for Britain as well, that made me laugh because whenever he goes to China, it's for the benefit of China.
Yeah.
So he's more likely going to sell out Britain when he's there, and he's going to make sure that one of his friends, like Lord Hermer, is, going to get paid for it or whatever, because we all know that whenever he goes there, Britain always loses. He's going to do a deal which, we won't benefit from at all.
Right.
And he's building a super embassy, which is a security risk that we found out. And Lord knows, frankly, it's something that I really don't want to think about what the deal is going to be with China, right? Because I know we're going to lose out definitely.
Right. Well, one of the things that China has caused a problem with our economy over is the whole business of electric cars. The Ministry of Defence has already put out a warning to anyone who's got an electric car to say basically don't allow it to be parked anywhere near a Ministry of Defence facility because it's effectively a giant spying machine, right? But yet we're importing more and more of these cars. And over in Davos last week, Rachel Reeves was told by the Americans, the problem for you and your mad net zero crusade is that you're creating a sort of an electricity generating business without being able to create any electricity. So you're going to have to buy all your batteries from China. You're going to be reliant on China for all of the energy that's going to power Britain. And we're going to be screwed because if China decides to switch it all off, we won't have any electricity.
Yeah. And it's exactly what they want as well, for us to not be creators at all, to rely on another force. It's like that's the mindset of Labour, is to always rely on another country or another entity like the EU or China. Right. They don't want us to be proud or independent like we should be. I mean, we're a great country. We should be creating these things. We shouldn't be relying on another country for battery power or any electricity. And I think that's just what they want. And, it's just mad that they want us to have more electric cars. They want us to go down that route. But instead, they're saying, don't park it near this embassy that's for China. I mean, it's just ludicrous, really. And it's
Isn't
just
it?
the mindset of an incompetent government.
It is an incompetent government, massively. And I mean, in the Telegraph this morning on the front page, Keir Starmer has basically said he's going to defend his trip to China because with China's help, Britain will be safer and richer. I mean, is this man completely deluded? Because he's also risking, is he not, the wrath of Donald Trump, who's not that keen on China.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just don't know where he's getting his advice from. And I really hope that President Trump absolutely destroys the Kagos deal that's going to surrender to China as well.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just hope he does, because he's our only hope. I mean, it's sad that we have to rely on the President of the United States to defend the British interests for us instead of the actual Prime Minister. But he is a very delusional man. He thinks he's going to be Prime Minister until the next general election, but his days are thankfully numbered, and I hope the next by-election results next month actually speeds up his political demise.
Yeah, let's hope so, because obviously there's been a lot of drama over the weekend about Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham was forced to deny yesterday that he was told that he would be turned down if he tried to apply to be the candidate for that particular by-election. But it now looks as though Reform might end up winning it. They named Matt Goodwin yesterday, a guy that probably you know as I do, as a GB News presenter. He's a professor as well. Very, very good man. He's going to be the Reform candidate, and he's got a pretty good chance of winning, hasn't he?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, I've always liked Matt Goodwin. I'm hoping that he'll be the next MP to go into the House of Commons.
Yeah.
And, you know, with Keir Starmer, I was just thinking that I think he likes China for the dictatorship that they have, because Keir wants to keep out Andy Burnham because he knows that he's a leadership risk. You know, he takes inspiration from these dictators, despite calling Reform and the Tories fascists in the past. So I think it's quite laughable, really. But I'm hoping that Matt Goodwin smashes it. I know that the Greens are going to be the most threat because of the kind of population they have there. I think it's 30% Muslim, so there might be some sectarian interests that are going to be local in that area. But I'm really on board for Matt Goodwin. I may go up there and campaign for him if I have any spare time, but I'm fingers crossed for Matt Goodwin. He's a very, very good man, and a real conservative as well. We need more conservatives in there.
Definitely. And isn't it funny that we talk about the Green Party as the party of the Muslim community? You know, I mean, there was a time when the Green Party were interested in, knitting, their food and eating a lot of muesli and making slippers out of bamboo and all that kind of thing. And now what you get is radical pro-Palestinian maniacs who apparently are also involved in the Green community. It's bizarre, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, it's like a few years ago when I fought with the Green Party, I used to think of, white liberal tree huggers. Now it's like the radical Islamists.
Right.
It's not really an innocent party anymore. It's, it's not the party that just wants to make sure you recycle properly.
Right.
It's the party that's going to make sure that, Jews are more unsafe and that they're going to, have all these no-go areas that they just they don't think about what the consequences of these are, because I read yesterday that they most likely will put forward their deputy leader, the one who shouted free Palestine when he won a council election not a couple of years ago. So, I really think the Green Party is actually one of the most dangerous parties out there. They're lunatics, and they're dangerous lunatics, and very incompetent, because they put out a leaflet the other day that spelled the constituency wrong as well. They can't even spell Gordon.
Brilliant. I mean, that's pretty much sums it all up, doesn't it? And I can't ever mention the Green Party without mentioning Zach Polanski and the fact that, as some people point out, he's the only man that we know in the UK who brushes his teeth with a hammer. Because his teeth look so bloody awful. Let's talk about Shabana Mahmood. She's been busy this week rearranging the police force, but she's also admitted that the migrant return deal, the one-in, one-out deal, is a farce. Well, I mean, I could have told her that. In fact, I did tell her that the day that they announced it. It turns out that actually it meant that more people have come into the country than have left the country. Well, we all knew that was going to be the case, didn't we?
Absolutely. It's not a surprise at all. I think the only people who thought it was going to work were Shabana Mahmood and Keir Starmer.
Yeah.
Because nobody else in Britain thought it was going to. And, the funny thing is that Shabana was presented as this tough new Home Secretary who's going to get things done. We're going to stop the boats but she's just been as bad as Yvette Cooper, in my opinion. She's just a bit more on the ball in terms of tinkering around the edges. She's going to say we're going to have less police forces or whatever, but it's not enough, really. We need to go faster and further because the boats are still coming in. We don't know who these people are. Unfortunately, it's got to that point where we're all just waiting for the next alleged sexual assault from illegal migrants, particularly when they're putting them in more new areas. Even though people are still protesting against it, they're still going against our wishes and putting them in these areas that we don't want. So, it's not enough to just say, oh, we're going to deport one. And then, like in the past, that same person has then arrived back into Britain.
Yeah.
So we're not really deporting really anyone. It's just one or two people.
Right.
And that's about it, really.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, they keep hanging on to this number of, I think it's about 50,000 that they claim they've deported, right? But that was a figure from a year ago, last November. And it was a figure that included most of the people who had been actually paid money to go back to their country. And the only number that they've actually deported, who didn't want to go anywhere, is about 3,000. Right, but they keep keep repeating the same number as if we're all stupid and we don't remember.
Exactly. I mean, they are trying to lie to us, but we're not stupid at all. We know that they've been paid to go and paid quite generously as well.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if any of these people who paid to go actually made the journey back again.
Right. Well, do you remember that guy, the guy from Epping?
Are they going to pay them again?
Yeah, the guy from the Bell Hotel in Epping who was in prison, do you remember, and who then got let out by mistake. Yeah. He was paid 6 months he was paid an equivalent amount of 6 months' salary to go back to Ethiopia, and we have no idea whether he decided just to come back again. He might be back in Epping for all we know.
We wouldn't know. I mean, it took the police force about 4 or 5 days to find him again.
Yeah.
And this was a guy who was wearing the same clothes for all those days, and they couldn't find him. So I do worry about the authority that we have in the UK that can't find a man who was, wearing the same clothes for 4 or 5 days.
Right. You would have to worry about it. Let's have a look at another clip we've got. I just want to play this one quickly. This is from Crowborough the other day, where, of course, there's been massive demonstrations about the opening up of a former army barracks to 540 single young men who are going to be living there cheek by jowl with the community. This is a recording of a meeting that was held at the council just the other night. Have a look.
Next to him, and then Jack, can we come to the two ladies at the back? Sir first.
Yeah. How do you plan to meet the sexual needs of 600 men?
Andrew, did you hear the question?
Yeah, I said I don't.
Okay. Gentleman in the black.
Yeah, Andrew there, who is presumably a councillor. Funnily enough, Chris Parry, the former head of NATO in Europe and the former commander of the Royal Navy, actually put a tweet out yesterday saying, surely this is more a question for OnlyFans than it is for the Crowborough Council. But it's a valid question. What are you going to do about the needs of these young men who have come to this country from mostly what you would regard as developing nations, third world scenarios where women are treated very, very differently to the way they are in this country. And as you say, we've seen terrible, terrible examples of these men's attitudes towards women. Sexual assaults, rapes, and in some cases murder. And again, you have to say it's not going to be all of them, but it's going to be quite a substantial, minority of them, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And, history often repeats itself. So what we've seen in other areas in the UK, we're most likely going to see repeated in Crowborough as well. I mean, I don't know why they think it's going to be any different to them. And, it's always 600 men. I mean, where are the women and children? We were told by one Labour MP that women and children are arriving as well, but we've got 600 men arriving into one area that's going into an army base. Okay, so where are the women and children? And, going back to the Green Party, we had one of the deputy leaders, was it Rachel, who said that she's open to open borders, but she protested against these men coming into her area. So in a way, she's getting a taste of the kind of policy that she supports now. She's going to see firsthand what these people are like in her own area.
Yeah.
And, sadly, sometimes it's the only way that people can see what their ideology actually is when they see it in person, in reality, and they can see what we're actually been protesting again, particularly the locals. And I wonder, has Rachel actually joined in with the locals who have been protesting? We don't know. I don't think she has. I've not seen her any pictures or any clips. So, you know, it kind of just shows that these people are absolute hypocrites. But sadly, it's the people of of Crowborough who I feel most sorry for, because, you know, they're having to put extra protection for their children who go to school. And if they go to the local park, well, they see groups of men gathering like they have in other areas. You know, I do feel sorry for them, and I hope that nothing happens. But, you know, as I say, history often repeats itself.
It does, absolutely right. Chris, great to talk to you. Good to see you. We'll get you on a lot, I think, on this show. People are saying you're talking an awful lot of common sense. George says this, you have to have this man on with you more often. He's brilliant, talks common sense. Jean, I think, had a good message as well. Can we get that one up? Pooch, if you can still see it. We put it up a minute ago. But anyway, listen, Chris, fantastic to see you. Enjoy the rest of the day, Wednesday. Quarter of adults don't drink, apparently, anymore. But I think the more this government continues to ruin the country, the more we'll all be turning to drink, I suspect. Chris, thanks very much indeed. Jean says, it's a great show again, Mike. The guests are brilliant, saying how we all feel. Please get Chris on more. He's fantastic. And a happy birthday to Ziggy. Well, thank you very much indeed. Chris Rose, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be talking to him again, I'm sure, very soon. Kelvin McKenzie coming up in a little while. He's going to be talking to us. And, of course, the big guest that we've got today, Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. She'll be joining us just before 9 o'clock, and we'll be asking her about how it is that she was vilified for supposedly ruining the economy, when the economy is now so much worse, and nobody's saying anything about it. As you can see, Angela Rayner saying, I'm not dead yet. Well, I mean, there's any number of remarks you can make to that. But look, at the end of the day, we've got loads and loads of things to celebrate. We've got, of course, some super chats to do as well. Should we do some of those before we get to the news? Because Edward Hughes with the news is coming up soon. Great. Keir Stasi, 60 strong, poncing in China, says St. Christopher. Kat Sunder says this, what's he going to give away now? Well, I mean, is there anything left to give away? Ezzy Boy says this, love Ziggy, my dog. Buddy barked during montage saying, happy birthday, great show. Hi, Pooch. Thanks for making this the best channel. Again, Pooch has done absolute wonders. There's all sorts of new things that some of you might not have noticed. Like, subscribe and enjoy, says Robin de Hood. Please do that, yes, because we are moving ever closer to more and more people subscribing to the channel. We've got 125,000, 126,000, I think now. Please like and subscribe, because it does massively help the YouTube channel. It doesn't cost anything, but it really does help us. Also, for those of you who don't like the adverts, this is YouTube dropping them in, not us, although we are looking at a possible situation where we might put the ads in specific times, right? Basically, there are two ways around watching ads. Subscribe to the YouTube Premium, which means you get to watch it ad-free, or subscribe to my Substack, themikegrahamshow.com, for just £1 a week. The show is live, it's ad-free, and you will unlock daily posts from me as well as many other goodies. Thank you for your support, and please like and subscribe. In fact, yesterday, I was wondering about, I had to go and have a meeting with Liz Truss, actually, in Mayfair, and there's a very funny thing that happens, and I hope you forgive me for spending some time to talk about this. On the tube, there's a sort of Pavlov's dog reaction that you get, right? Normally I go to Bond Street, which is obviously right next to Oxford Street, where Selfridges is, because that's where I go to the gym. And when you come down the escalator at Bond Street, you go to the right to go south, which is where I want to go, right? And so whenever I go to Green Park, which is the station before, if you go right, that actually goes the other way, which it kind of screws your brain up, right? Because I'm used to coming down the escalator, turning right, getting on a train. So of course I did that again yesterday, came down at Green Park, got on the train on the right, and suddenly found myself going north. I went the wrong way. And I filmed myself doing it as well. So if you go on the Substack, you'll see my little video that I put out showing you exactly what I was doing. Now, coming up, we're going to do Plank of the Day, and this is about a police officer who's suing the Metropolitan Police for something that you will not believe. I kid you not. Idris Elba also has been done for going 28 miles an hour on a moped when he was in a 20 mile an hour zone in London. when, of course, it used to be a 30-mile-an-hour zone. The doomsday clock, as you can see, is moving closer to midnight. I don't know what that means. I've no idea. I haven't got a doomsday clock, but I'm sure if I did have one, you'd probably say it was running fast or something because you wouldn't like it, because you're pedants. And also, we've reached our creative peak at 67, which is bad news for Kelvin McKenzie, who's coming on a little bit later on because he's well past that. I'm not, of course. I'm just about to reach it. In a couple of years' time. So let's get, first of all, before we do anything else, the news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. Here's the news for today, Wednesday, 28th of January. I'm Edward Hughes, suffering a bit after a big night last night. Britain is still reeling from Storm Chandra, the third monster storm to slam us this January. Torrential rain smashed January records. Rivers burst banks. Flash floods swamped Devon and the southwest. Roads vanished underwater. Trains ground to a halt. And police are begging people, don't travel unless you absolutely have to. If you're in the West Country, stay high and dry. It's chaos out there. Meanwhile, Prime Minister two-tier Keir Starmer jets off to Beijing today in a bold, high-stakes move. The first UK leader there since 2018. He's taking big business names like Airbus, AstraZeneca and HSBC, chasing trade deals, investment and tech ties with China, all while carefully dodging any drama with an unpredictable Washington. No choosing sides, he says, but everyone's watching. Remember to mention human rights and spying to President Xi. Pubs get a lifeline with new government support packages amid sky-high costs. 5 controversial IPP prisoners head to the Court of Appeal, and vets could soon have to display clear prices for pet treatments to tackle those eye-watering bills. And of course, it's Ziggy's birthday today. So, happy birthday, Ziggy, from the news and production team. I'm sure the viewers will be sending in some lovely messages. That's your UK roundup. Wrap up, avoid flooded roads, and let's hope calmer weather is on the way. I'm off for a lie down. Laters, Tigers.
Off for a lie down, really? Okay then. Be careful where you go for the lie down. Don't lie down on top of anyone, would be my advice. That's Edward Hughes, of course, with the news. And also, I don't know why he keeps going on about the news and production team. And also, can I ask a question to Pooch? I thought did we not have an animated version of Edward Hughes with the news?
The viewer sent it in.
It was a viewer that sent that in. Can we revisit that? Because I quite liked it. The pictures of him actually, like with his mouth moving, speaking, as if he is indeed a proper newsreader, because that's what he should be doing. Coming up in this hour, we will of course be playing you once again that ridiculous video of Paul Mason arguing the toss with Andrew Gold. Because it is quite extraordinary. And I've got this as a super chat from John, who says, Mason is a plank. How grateful Kemi must be knowing she's a Tory leader because of Paul, white male saviour Mason, the bigotry of low expectation. I think that's a very good point. The left are so consumed by hatred, so consumed by political correctness, that they end up saying things which don't make any sense. He's basically sitting there in the studios at LBC with Ian Dale, who's a pretty good guy, by the way, talking about how grateful he is and how happy he is that we've got a black leader of the opposition. I don't know anyone that cares that Kemi Badenoch happens to have black skin, that she happens to be darker skinned than other people. Nobody cares that Rishi Sunak was made the first sort of Asian Prime Minister of Indian heritage, right? I remember Trevor Noah, an American talk show host, got very worked up about it, and he did a whole monologue over in America about how ridiculous it was that in Britain people were reacting to the fact that Rishi Sunak was the first Hindu Prime Minister that we'd ever had, when in fact nobody was doing that. Not one person said that there was a surprise, because nobody cares. The bottom line is nobody gives a damn. But all these people on the left who make out that, diversity is our strength. And isn't it brilliant that we've got a black, leader of the Metropolitan Police? Or isn't it amazing that we've got an Asian Prime Minister? Or isn't it amazing that Sadiq Khan is running London? No, I'll tell you what's not amazing is the fact that he's ruining bloody London. It doesn't matter what skin colour he's got. He's just useless. And that's what should matter to anyone. It shouldn't matter what colour the skin of a person is, because nobody cares, right? We live literally in a place where everybody's human and they can have whatever skin colour they want. Whether they do the job right is a matter, is the thing that really is important. Now, coming up, we're going to do Plank of the Day, and it's an amazing story out of The Sun this morning about a woman called Kirsty Coy Martin. who was a police officer and who is now suing the Metropolitan Police. We'll come back to that in a moment. But first of all, Plank of the Week is also out there. Let's have a look at what you can expect if you haven't seen it yet. This is the thing. I mean, people expect me to be really horrible, and it turns out that I'm not, which is quite disappointing, actually.
Yeah, it is. I expected you to be a twat.
Try harder, please.
I know. It's
Would you mind?
But
Yeah,
you
but I
know
think
what,
the BBC has sort of been recognised and unveiled as beta. Well, I'm answering your question anyway, Lewis, so whether you like it or not.
Okay.
So I think they've been revealed as a proper state instrument in terms of the wokeness and agenda. And what's happened is the curtain's been pulled back, and everyone has recognised what they are. Yes, they do have some great product which they sell to various parts. But some of the David Attenborough stuff, that's good.
No, he's an anti-Semite, that guy.
Attenborough is completely... First of all, he's too old for a start. There's no business taking the job away from somebody younger in his 90s, for Christ's sake.
But he's great.
And also, every single... Yeah, of course they do, because they're simps for the BBC. Attenborough is no more of an expert on the planet or the climate than I am.
Then Bill Gates.
I know,
right.
But it's a sentimental thing, Mike.
And we've got a new show coming out. Have you? What are you going to call it? Doesn't matter as long as it's got blue in it. You know, blue planet, blue sea, blue
and
sky.
it'll still be good.
You know, blue this,
it'll
blue
still be a great show.
No, I can't stand it. And here we are. And then it turns out half of it's fake anyway, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't go to any of the places anymore in case he dies doing it, right? They won't put him on a boat to go across the Bristol Channel because they're frightened he won't make it to the other side.
Have you been across the Bristol Channel, Mike?
Yeah, I drive across the Severn Bridge like all sensible people. But the point is this. Half of the stuff that they claim is you know, like, oh look, we've managed to capture in the wild. It's not in the wild. They've done it in a studio, and there was a guy who was found out.
But it looks pretty.
So it's fake.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Fake news.
But they're saying it is illustrative.
Illustrative.
Yes.
It's
a bit like
educational.
Oh, yeah,
so it's telling us about, you know, what about animals.
It's a bit like
Would you
splicing.
not interrupt, Mike?
Stop talking over me.
Exactly.
It's a bit like having two clips of Donald Trump and splicing them together and pretending that he said it all in one sentence.
No,
fake.
it's not.
It's fake news.
It's not. It's
fake
up.
news.
It's back up to the thing.
No.
So if you see like the way that
I can't believe you're defending
praying mantra mates with
praying
whatever.
mantra.
Oh, I don't know, you know.
I have a praying mantra. I say it every morning. It's brilliant.
Is that a weird type of yoga?
No, sorry.
Yeah. But I mean, that's Plank of the Week. A lot of people complained that it was very noisy, that people were talking over each other. I mean, it's partly because the people who were on it hadn't done it before, and so it was a bit of a new experience for them. But don't worry, we will return to normal on Friday at 7 o'clock, Plank of the Week. We're going to do Plank of the Day very shortly, but before that, let's have a quick run through some of the headlines. Pubs U-turning to save the locals. Now, don't worry, we've got your favourite dictator coming up as well on the voting there. Pubs U-turn to save locals is what it says on the front of the I newspaper, but I'm afraid the Daily Mail sees it slightly differently. They've got Reeves puts a nail in the coffin of the High Street because, of course, basically she sends a junior of hers to the House of Commons to reveal betrayal of pubs, hotels and small shops. And as I said earlier, we've reached a stage now where a lot of people in hospitality are just giving up because they can't afford to run the business that they've been running for years and years and years. And somebody said this morning, what has happened and what the government reprieve supposedly is for pub owners and pub managers and landlords is it's a bit like somebody coming around, breaking your arm, giving you a paracetamol and going, you should be grateful for me giving you this painkiller. You know, your arm's absolutely hurting you. You know, it's excruciatingly painful. And the government's giving you literally an aspirin to see if that helps, which is shocking. You reach your creative peak at 67. We'll be talking to Kelvin McKenzie about that. And also the big story on the front pages as well, which I think is really shameful, not least about Keir Starmer going to China, but more about the fact that basically Keir Starmer, when he was the head of, or actually before he was the head of the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, when he was a human rights lawyer, he donated his time free with Lord Hermer to prosecute Iraqi veterans. So British soldiers who went to Iraq were prosecuted and pursued through the courts by Keir Starmer and Lord Hermer because they wanted to do it. It wasn't the cab rank scenario. It was them wishing to actually try and lock up British soldiers for doing their duty in Iraq, where they were sent by, let's not forget, a Labour Prime Minister. Absolutely shocking. Right now, though, let's do Plank of the Day.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
And Plank of the Day today is not anybody famous. It's not anybody you've ever heard of. It's a woman by the name of Kirsty Coy Martin who is suing the Metropolitan Police for, guess what, £1 million. And she's suing for £1 million because why? She claims that she's got a phobia of police stations. Huh? She's a police officer, right? She says her mental health was ruined by years of having to investigate crimes against children. She says she worked in child abuse and sexual offence teams at London's Metropolitan Police Force between 2005 and 2016. She's now filed papers at court in which she says she works as a custody sergeant. Later on, she was mostly home-based, analysing CCTV footage. So that's a police officer in the Metropolitan Police working from home. She claims her career ended in 2023 because of the triggering of her PTSD by everyday work experiences, including being sent paperwork with a baby's foot logo. In the end, she would suffer a panic attack simply by being told to attend a police station. So effectively, her lawyers say bosses should have known that she was at risk of mental health, ill health, because of her long stint in the child abuse team, and they should have done more to protect her. So basically, she got a job working in the police and then said that it was too traumatic for her and she now wants £1 million. So as much as I no doubt there'll be those of you out there going, oh, but she's got mad mental health. No, I'm sorry. If you want to be a police officer, you should be trained to be a police officer. You should be able to withstand the horrible things that you will see as a police officer. I mean, I have to say, when I was a journalist, there were things that I saw and things that I read and things that I learned that were pretty traumatic as well. But you know what you're doing. It's a bit like saying, I'm going to become a fireman, but I'm frightened of fire. Well, then don't be a fireman then. If you're frightened of police stations, don't be a police officer. It's not that difficult, is it? That, of course, is Plank of the Day.
Hello, it's Plank of the Day time.
We're going to talk to Kelvin McKenzie very shortly. I'm not sure if he's here yet, is he? No. He's not here yet. OK, so let me do a couple of tweets for you. Where did the orders come from, Mike? The monarch and the government? End of. I think that's the story about Keir Starmer. And why didn't she leave the police force then? Well, good question, says Julie. She wanted £1 million. Surely Kirsty could have just left the job, says Tony. Yeah, absolutely right. And Starmer gives me bad mental health. Time to sue for millions, says Lord Viking Live. I'll tell you what, we haven't touched upon this story too much so far, but this is on the front page of the Times today. They've done an investigation into, yet again, another migrant con job which has been going on, because what we know is there are an awful lot of people getting very, very wealthy on the back of the migrant crisis, right? More and more people coming in. We've got the Crowborough story, in which there are something like, 540 young single men being shipped into a former army barracks, where the local people are very concerned that they're going to cause problems, they're going to commit crimes, they're going to be frightening the local community. Crowborough doesn't want it. But the thing that I find most extraordinary is not so much the fact that loads of people are making loads of money out of this, particularly people like Serco, particularly the people that are running hotels full of migrants, particularly people who are shipping the migrants backwards and forwards up and down the country in taxis and all the rest of it. But here's a Times investigation by Shanti Das, Balakrishnan Balagopal and James Beale. Fake jobs that allowed migrants to stay in Britain unlawfully are being sold for up to £20,000 as part of fraudulent schemes to obtain work visas. A Times investigation has exposed how criminal networks are targeting migrants at risk of deportation and offering to arrange skilled worker visas for jobs that do not exist, right? Basically, it means that if you have got a job and the Home Office comes for you and the deportation squad turns up, you say, no, I've got a job, therefore I can stay in the country. And they show documents to prove that they've got a job, which means that they can then get permanent residency. But of course, it turns out that there is no job, that there never was a job, and that the job is entirely and utterly fantastic, i.e. it's a fantasy. It doesn't work. One agent told an undercover reporter posing as a migrant looking for a job, on paper, you will be working with that company, but in reality, you won't. You don't go to their office and work 40 hours a week. He said you can arrange to get a payroll-only job in any industry for 13,000 quid. And basically, the Home Office says, oh, we've been alerted to this and we are investigating this illegal activity and it will not be tolerated. Not be tolerated? For heaven's sake, I mean, crikey. Does the Home Office know what's actually going on in the world of migrant spending? Because there's an awful lot of people making an awful lot of money, and at the end of the day, the Home Office doesn't seem to have a bloody clue what is happening in this country. Karen says this, morning Mike and Pooch, happy birthday Ziggy. Mike, could you possibly get an L-shaped or semi-circular desk to make it easier for your guests? They look uncomfortable on Plank of the Week. No. Thanks, Karen, for your help. But no, we've got a desk which is, in a straight line for a reason. It's because the camera angles work that way. you know, if you'd like to buy us a few more cameras and come in and operate them, by all means, we'll get an L-shaped desk. I don't mean to be rude. Sorry. Right now, it's time to talk to Kelvin Mackenzie, former editor of The Sun, founder of Talk Sport. Welcome back, Kelvin, to the great home of common sense.
Yes, well, it's very good to be with you.
Now, I've got some bad news for you.
What?
I've got some bad news. There's a piece in the paper today saying that you reached your creative pinnacle at the age of 67, which obviously in my case is coming up, but in your case is quite a long way away.
Yes, it's well. In fact, I tell you what, I've got a big party to which you're coming to later this year when I'm 45.
Yes, exactly right. And I'm going to bring you an Easter egg as a present for that as well. Let me show you this clip because I think this sums up the state of our nation probably better than anything else that you've ever seen. This is Paul Mason, a mad lefty who once stood for election on LBC with Ian Dale. Being racist is what I think. Have a look at this.
I'm proud of this. We have the leader of the opposition party is a woman, who's Nigerian in origin and is black. And we had a Home Secretary who was black under the Conservatives, and we've now got a Home Secretary who's a Muslim under Labour. What a brilliant country this is. It's reform and it's politics of hate that wants to tear that all apart. So although I will fight Kemi Badenoch's Tory party tooth and nail on policy, I will always say, let's celebrate the fact that we're all part of a political setup that still stigmatises racism, that still stigmatises extremism of the right and the left. The people leaving are the people who are always borderline or explicit racists, and that's the whole racist party.
Like Danny Kruger, I think that's really unfair.
Sorry, I think Danny Kruger, National Conservative, he's laid it all out.
But Suella's a racist?
Well, the Rwanda scheme was racist. Absolutely. The Rwanda scheme was racist.
We're talking about politicians right now, and you're the only one that's been talking about their skin colour.
No, I'll tell you why I'm talking about their skin colour, because I'm very, very proud of this country being able to have people of multi-ethnic and multi-faith. Because I grew up in a white society that was racist, and I know how hard.
But you think this society is racist?
I know, yes, I do, and I'll tell you why.
How do we have leaders of parties who have different colours?
Because people like me have fought racism for decades. What have you done?
Well, I've not been alive for that many decades.
You're just a podcaster, aren't you? You're just a podcaster.
Well, I don't judge people by their skin colour. That's something I can say.
Racism.
I can say that I don't judge people.
Tell me what you've done in your life to fight racism.
Even if we try, Paul, even if we try and pretend that what you said wasn't explicitly racist, okay, let's say it wasn't racist by judging people by their skin colour. Okay, I just want to say
I'm judging Kemi Badenoch by her performance
and her skin colour.
By her politics. I've said it's brilliant that we have a black leader of the opposition.
Right. Okay, so you admit that. Okay, good. Well, we know that what you said. In my opinion, that's racist. But
I mean, isn't that extraordinary? Is that not ridiculous?
Well, Paul Mason is actually uniquely with that kind of view. He's actually failed. He's a failed Labour politician.
Yeah,
I mean, he was rejected by the people. Actually, funnily enough, he's rejected even within the Labour Party because when you have that kind of view, which basically is an open borders view, which of course has led to the extraordinary situation where you have, I saw a poll the other day saying Reform were on 32, and actually Labour are on 14. The trouble with that argument, is that the only good people that appear to emerge in Paul Mason's rather strange world are people of, brown, black, or some other colour outside white. What's happened with the white community is that they fail to stand up to that kind of argument. Actually, that young chap put a bit of an effort in, but actually he was nowhere near as vile to Mason as Mason was to him. For instance, dismissing him as a podcaster. I mean, you must have had a view about that. The NUP, the National Union of Podcasters, of which you're currently chairman. So I imagine you got extremely angry.
Well, I mean, also this kind of ridiculous. It's like, when did you stop beating your wife? What have you done to fight racism? What have you done? It's like, why don't you get lost? Bugger off. What's got to do with you?
No, it's true. Look, at the end of it all, what I could see happening with the changing face of our nation is actually more people having a view about colour, which they didn't have before.
Right.
I mean, that becomes a political argument, I think. Look, I don't think you should get too carried away by the Paul Masons of this world. There aren't many of them, and those that are, whenever they put themselves up for election, which is the only thing that really matters, they are rejected. So, but what we do have to face, as you have just been explaining to your viewers, is that there are people now who are now making rather good livings
Yes.
out of what they're doing is they're forging cleverly a very important document, sponsorship document, which I see 87,000 firms in this country are entitled to issue, right? Which can lead to all kinds of people, but two particular sets of people appear to be targeted by them. Number one, the people who have come here on sponsorship from other countries and have lost their jobs. Well, that's not unreasonable in this climate, is it? We have record unemployment. Unemployment is growing and vacancies are decreasing.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're going to see a lot more migrants who came to this country under sponsorship suddenly discovering that they're not in work. But the one thing that they do like is they do like the UK system, right? Which you're entitled to say what you think, including the Paul Masons of this world. And also there appears to be some work because remember, they come from countries where there is virtually no work.
Right.
I mean, where there is literally 30 and 35% unemployment. And the other kind of people that are here are students who come to our nation to take advantage of one of the few areas where we are world leaders, which is in education, i.e. through universities. And then once they end that, they say to themselves, well, this is good fun, isn't it? There's plenty of alcohol. There seems to be unlimited supply of cannabis. And I'd like to stay here. I don't want to go back to the bloody awful country I came from. And I have no rights. So let me see if I can get my family to chop together 13 to 20,000 quid so I can get one of these sponsorship documents and then basically live in this country so that when I'm stopped by anybody, they say that I'm okay. I mean, this is no surprise. I don't know how many people it affects, but like you, I suspect there is more criminality going on in that kind of undercover migrant, illegal migrant community than we have taken credit for.
Oh, no question at all. I mean, there's an awful lot of people working in what would formerly have been called the black economy, where they're not paying tax.
Yes, well, actually, that's a very good point.
It's all cash in hand, all of that.
You see, that's a very good point. Black economy. You see, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before somebody comes to you, gives you a tap on the shoulder, and says, "Look here, Mike, I'm so sorry. Under the Black Economy Don't Speaky Act, unfortunately, you're going to be fined 500 quid."
Which be cancelled again.
Yes, in fact, I tell you what, you could actually start wearing. No, this is a good idea. Why don't you start wearing medals for the number of places that you've been cancelled? But for instance, if that was me, I'd be Field Marshal Mackenzie.
You would,
you know,
absolutely right.
And perhaps we should start our own army of people who have been cancelled. I mean, the only good thing to emerge in that gab fest issued by Mahmood yesterday. Saying that she was going to merge all the police forces into one or something, and that she could fire any chief constable who managed to charge a member of her family with fraud or anything like that. So one good thing was that they did scrap non-hate crime.
Well, they keep saying they're scrapping it, but they still keep visiting people's front doors. I mean, there was the police just the other day turning up at some woman in Crowborough's front door saying, "Have you got any plans to do any more demonstrating?" And she's going, "Sorry, yeah." There was this footage of it on Twitter. It's like, why are you here? 6 police officers turned up at this woman's door, said, "We understand you were at the protest yesterday. This is not about you committing any crime. We'd just like to know if you're planning to go to any more." And you're kind of going, "Well, what's that all about?"
Well, I didn't see that thing, so I don't spend every waking minute on Twitter, so I apologise for not being up to speed on that particular piece of video. But I have no idea. Did she say, "Well, why are you here"? And why did they want to know this?
Yes,
Why
and
did
she also said, I don't know if I'm going to go to another protest, but, what's it got to do with you, basically?
And what did they say to that response?
They just said, well, we've just been asked to come and talk to you in an advisory capacity. Right?
Advise them about what? About where the demonstration was going to
presumably
take place?
to intimidate. Yeah, presumably to intimidate her into not doing it again. There's no other explanation, really.
Right. Well, that is completely wrong.
Yeah.
And it is. The impossible aspect of all this is that all that our people in this country want is, I think, two things from the police. One, I wouldn't mind seeing a police officer. I've lived in Weybridge in Surrey now for 20 odd years.
Right.
I got left behind by the last wife, right? And so
yeah, you and the forks.
Yeah. So I have seen two officers walk down our high street once in 20 years.
Wow.
That can't possibly be right.
No.
And I imagine that my experience is possibly replicated over most parts of the country. What was so unusual, I was in Leicester Square a couple of days ago, and there were two officers there, two or three officers, looking at different aspects of the square. They were on the lookout, clearly for criminals, right? They were fully dressed, and they were actually, this was like midday or something. Do you know, that gave me a joy? Yes. Absolute joy. If I see them at Waterloo Station, it gives me a joy. It tells me, for instance, the precept on your council tax from the police service is high. You are entitled. They don't work for you. I totally get that, and I understand why that can't happen. But we are funding them, right? I want to see them.
Yeah.
What is it that is so difficult about policing that they feel that they can't give a nod to the very people that are funding them and wish them well? We wish them well, and yet I can't be sure that they actually exist. And
No.
I love the cops who do that job. Who would have to listen at a demonstration to people abusing you, belittling you, and actually planning violence on you? Who would do that for a job? They deserve our absolute support. But what I'd like their bosses to say is that there is a possibility that every so often we will prove that they exist and are not a figment of a new AI robot.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm going to finish up with, I don't know whether you've seen the Daily Mail today, page 5, I thought you'd be interested in. Idris Elba has been done for tootling along on his moped at 28 miles an hour in a 20 zone. I know you've had some experience of this recently.
Right, so
I mean, this is ridiculous, isn't it?
Well, I've been busted twice, just lately. I would say that look, you can have limiters on it. That is true. I would say it is very hard to drive at 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And the other thing is the car was never made for 20 miles an hour. Certainly my car wasn't made for it. Look, I accept it's the law. You're driving, say, sometimes I used to do some stuff on GB News and then drive from Paddington back to home. Honestly, there we are. The roads are totally and completely deserted, and you are doing 19 miles an hour. And so there's no give or take in it. What is worse than this? I happened to listen to an interview just now on a rival to yours, actually.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, there is one. It's called the Today Programme. Anyway, I was listening to it, and they were interviewing. Now, this is shocking, really. They were interviewing some bloody Welsh fool. Now, he turned out to be the leader of Plaid Cymru, and if I mispronounced it, good, right?
Yeah. Has he got app somewhere in the middle of his name? Something or other, right?
He's got a daffodil coming out of his rear end, that's for sure. Anyway, so we decided to go slightly down market here. He was explaining, so quite not unreasonably, the interviewer said to him, "Well, where are you on 20 mile an hour? I mean, the people of Wales didn't want 20 miles an hour." He said, "Well, I agree with you. We said at the time you are bringing this in wrongly. We are not saying we don't want 20 miles an hour. but we didn't like the way it was brought in. So the people of Wales, if they vote for this Welsh fool,
Right.
or this fool, actually, you can't be a Welsh fool,
Right.
this fool, you are going to get the 20 mile. You're going to get the 20 miles an hour. Can I say that when I tweeted that thing just saying I got busted twice. Do you realise that has been read by 2.5 million people?
Amazing.
Well, I've only got 120,000 followers.
Right.
So there is a fantastic amount of interest in it, and unfortunately, under Labour, under Khan, under most councils, they're heading towards you. So if you come across a candidate, I'm urging your viewers, you come across a candidate who doesn't specifically say we're going to raise it either back up to 30 or to 25, then for God's sake, don't vote for them.
No, exactly right. I mean, I drive in and out of here because it's at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's the easiest way to get here. And when I go home, at sort of 10:30 or whatever it is, you get stuck behind people who are driving. They're so nervous that they're driving at sort of 15 miles an hour or 12 miles an hour. I was on a bus the other day that was doing 8 miles an hour. And you're kind of going, I mean, this is a recipe for death, because people are going to get so annoyed, they're just going to stop the car, get out of it, and start hitting each other with hammers. You know? It's ridiculous.
Well, actually, I've got some people that you could hit with hammers. So if you're feeling very angry one day, I'll just send a few photos to you.
Excellent. Good stuff. Listen, Kelvin, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of the day. Kelvin McKenzie, former editor of The Sun, when it used to sell 4.5 million copies a day. Coming up very shortly, Liz Truss is going to be here to join us. She is, of course, the former Prime Minister of the Great British Isles. We can't say that anymore, can you? Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Who's your favourite dictator is the poll today. We've got Kim Jong-un, we've got President Xi, we've got Meghan Markle, and we've got Keir Starmer. And guess who's winning? It's Keir Starmer with 59%. He's off to China to see if he can learn a few more lessons in dictatorship from President Xi. He says that we will be richer and better off as a result of what he does in China. I'm not sure that's going to be true, and I'm pretty sure that Liz Truss is not going to agree with that either. Let's do a couple of super chats as well before we move on. This one from Sunshine Hawk. Happy birthday, Ziggy. Fantastic show, Mike. Ziggy, 12 years old, of course, today. Maybe we should play the little collection of pictures of him as well. Astral says this. You know how Starmer says, let me be absolutely clear whenever he's about to lie? We should start saying, let me be absolutely clear. Yeah, very true. Whenever a politician says, let me be absolutely clear, you know that they're going to be absolutely unclear. Paul Mason is a plank, says John. How grateful Kemi must be knowing she's Tory leader because of Paul, white male saviour Mason, the bigotry of low expectation. Thank you very much indeed for that. Lots more of you saying some very interesting things. Why is Mike regulating his language? I'm disappointed. The show isn't unfiltered. I don't think I'm regulating my language, but I'm not in favour of swearing an awful lot of the time because, as Howard Stern once said, when he moved away from being on regular radio in America and he went on to Sirius XM, which meant that he was completely and utterly uncensored, he said there's no point in swearing anymore because actually you're not going to offend anyone and you're not going to be told not to do it. So why bother? So that's kind of my view as well. Meow Mog says, I don't enjoy driving much anymore. The roads are too busy and everyone pulls out in front of me. Well, maybe you're going too slowly. Start driving a bit quicker. Bye-bye, Kelvin, says Jan. He's hilarious. Please have more of him. And facial recognition cameras, says Reggie. Have you seen my mother-in-law's face? Sorry, I don't get that. Anyway, listen, we got lots more to do. Why don't we do another tribute to Ziggy, 12 years old today. I've got a stick here that was given to me by Pooch's dog. Let's have a look at the video, shall we? Here he is. That's him as a puppy 12 years ago. That's me with very long hair. There he is as a puppy as well. He was so cute, such a little cute dog. And then he started to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And there he is, the king of Sussex. There he is with one of his friends. There he is with a massive great stick. That's with Boris, his friend. And these are just a collection of pictures that we thought we'd put together because so many of you have got so many nice things to say about Ziggy. And we'll be celebrating his birthday at the weekend, of course, as well. Today, he'll be getting some cake. From his mother. I won't see him today, unfortunately, because I'll be stuck up here in London. But what a beautiful dog. And anybody who ever has had a Labrador will know they are some of the most fantastic creatures alive. All he does is eat, by the way. There we are. And, of course, down there in Sussex, he'll be having a whale of a time. There he is at the beach. There he is in the garden. There he is in the kitchen. And there he is walking in the woods. In fact, those are the woods that you can't go to anymore, thanks to the Forestry Commission, who have made it illegal now to park there unless you pay. Absolutely ridiculous. Coming up, we're going to be talking to Liz Truss. We'll be taking views from you. If you think you're smarter than the previous generation, says Bavaria, 50 years ago, the owner's manual of a car showed you how to adjust the valves. Today, it warns you not to drink the contents of the battery. That's a very good point, is it not? What are we doing now, Pooch? Because we're going to go to the news, are we? Okay, Rachel? No. Rachel Reeves is ruining the country. She's on the front page of the Daily Mail, putting a nail in the coffin of the high street. There she is, Richard III. Let's get the news with with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. Here is the news for today, Wednesday, 28th of January. I'm Edward Hughes, suffering a bit after a big night last night. Britain is still reeling from Storm Chandra, the third monster storm to slam us this January. Torrential rain smashed January records, rivers burst banks, flash floods swamped Devon and the southwest, roads vanished underwater, trains ground to a halt, and police are begging people, don't travel unless you absolutely have to. If you're in the West Country, stay high and dry. It's chaos out there. Meanwhile, Prime Minister two-tier Keir Starmer jets off to Beijing today in a bold, high-stakes move. The first UK leader there since 2018. He's taking big business names like Airbus, AstraZeneca and HSBC, chasing trade deals, investment and tech ties with China, all while carefully dodging any drama with an unpredictable Washington. No choosing sides, he says, but everyone's watching. Remember to mention human rights and spying to President Xi. Pubs get a lifeline with new government support packages amid sky-high costs. 5 controversial IPP prisoners head to the Court of Appeal. And vets could soon have to display clear prices for pet treatments to tackle those eye-watering bills. And of course, it's Ziggy's birthday today. So, happy birthday, Ziggy, from the news and production team. I'm sure the viewers will be sending in some lovely messages. That's your UK roundup. Wrap up, avoid flooded roads, and let's hope calmer weather is on the way. I'm off for a lie down. Laters, Tigers.
Edward Hughes with the news there. Thank you very much indeed, Edward, for wishing Ziggy a happy birthday. We're very happy today as well because we've got a great guest for the first time ever in this studio, a former Prime Minister, the one and only Liz Truss. Liz, very good morning to you.
Hi, Mike. Great to be here.
Very nice to see you. We've got to start with Keir Starmer, I'm afraid. As much as we hate him, as much as he's the woodenest, I'm not sure if that's a word, man in the world, he's off to China today. He says on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, we will be safer and richer with China's help. We'll come to that in a minute. Have a look at what he said just before he took off.
This is the first trip by a Prime Minister of the United Kingdom to China for 8 years, and we've got 60 CEOs of businesses and cultural organisations coming with us to drum up business, take opportunities and deliver for the United Kingdom. So just about to leave now.
Just about to leave now with 60 CEOs off to do business in China. I mean, most people look at that and say, why are you going to China for the first time in 8 years? What exactly are you going to give away? And what's going to happen when you get back?
Well, that looked like a hostage video.
Did.
And I think he's already given away huge amounts to China.
Yeah.
He's approved this mega embassy, which will allow the Chinese to spy on us. We've just had evidence that the Chinese have been spying on prime ministers in number 10,
right,
including apparently some of my team.
Yes.
When I was in number 10. He's given away Mauritius, or he's trying to give away the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, which are essentially backed by China. So it's hard to see what is left in the coffers for him to do. But this is desperate because the British economy is in serious trouble. He has made it even worse. He's irritated and aggravated President Trump.
Yeah.
And now he's trying to do a deal with China. I mean, it's shocking.
Well, it is, because Mark Carney was warned, wasn't he, by Donald Trump? And I mean, some people might say, well, what's it got to do with Donald Trump?
Well, he was busy selling out Britain to China when he was governor of the Bank of England, of course. And now he's busy selling Canada out to China. There's a pattern here.
There is a pattern. And, you know, there is this kind of left belief, isn't there, that, you know, Donald Trump bad, everybody else, therefore, good. And it seems to me to be quite a dangerous policy because, you know...
Well, you should ask people, would they rather live under state surveillance in Beijing or in Miami?
Yeah.
And I think most Brits would probably choose Miami.
Exactly right. I mean, it's funny, isn't it, though, that there is this sort of, you know, belief, though, and I was having a little spat on Twitter with Giles Corran, who put out a column yesterday in the Times in which he said that he wasn't going to take his family to America because it's too dangerous. And, you know, again, like everything in this country.
Well, that's
now,
good for the rest of us.
well, I mean, some of the Americans were going, brilliant. Thank God you're not coming, and please don't bother coming back.
I think he should have a sponsored holiday to Wuhan, don't you think?
Well, apparently he's going to spend time in the Lake District and take his kids to Hadrian's Wall, which is, you know, I'm sure they're not very happy about. But, you know, there is this kind of belief that, you know, because Donald Trump is so awful, you know, we have to hate everything about America. And it's almost as, you know, you don't even have to be a left-winger now in this country to hate Donald Trump. And it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It's completely ridiculous. But these are the same people, and it all comes from the left-wing hatred of Britain, hatred of America, hatred of Western values.
Right.
And they're desperate to capitulate to anybody, whether it's the EU, China, Iran, add them all to the list.
Right.
And it comes from a fundamental sort of self-loathing, I think.
Yes.
That's what is in the heart of these lefties. But unfortunately, they've taken over our institutions. They've taken over the BBC. They've taken over the civil service.
Yeah.
So we now have this sort of natural national capitulation stance.
Right.
And the average person in Britain doesn't agree with this at all. I think quite a lot of them like Donald Trump.
They do.
But they're not prepared to admit it in public.
Right.
Because it's become socially unacceptable
Right.
in metropolitan circles.
Yeah,
That's
I mean, you know, an awful lot of the traffic yesterday between, you know, those who supported Giles Corran and those who supported me was from people saying, you know, they're shooting people in the street. You know, I lived in America in the 80s. They were shooting people in the street then. You know, America has guns. You know, a lot
and
of people
I think the
get
Chinese
shot.
dictatorship have formed for shooting a lot of people and running them over with tanks.
Yes.
When they protest
They
against
do.
the regime.
Also, they just disappear. I mean, one of the things that I said yesterday, you know, here's Keir Starmer going over to China. Is he going to mention the detaining of people in Hong Kong? Is he going to mention the disappearance of the leader of the military in China? Is he going to ask about, you know, the bugging of Downing Street aides' phones? No, he probably isn't, is he?
No, of course he's not.
No. And let's go back to that. I mean, you said it might have included, you know, possibly some of your own aides. Did you have any clue about that before you read that story yesterday?
No. And I haven't heard anything about it since either.
Right.
So,
but I mean, surely that shouldn't be possible, should it?
well, first of all, we know that there is a strong pro-China element within the civil service.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you
And
say that. I didn't know that.
In particular, the Treasury
Right.
were constantly pushing closer ties with China.
Right.
They're very connected in with the City of London. There are a lot of figures in the City of London who benefit from Chinese investment banks, Chinese investment. There is a lot of pressure coming from within to take a soft line on China. Regardless of Keir Starmer and his general left-wing capitulation, the entire system has become quite pro-China. And the espionage has been off the scale. You know, we saw the parliamentary figures who were not prosecuted because, again, the National Security Advisor had taken a soft line on China. So, in my view, we've got a deeply rotten system.
Yeah, that's Jonathan Powell, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Jonathan Powell. We've got a deeply rotten system. In order to change it, it's not just about changing the politicians. A lot of the officials are now complicit in what's going on.
And has it been a creeping kind of move, or has it been as a result? I mean, would you call it corrupt? Would you call it ideological? Why have we suddenly become so pro-China in the civil service?
Under Blair, we saw a lot of laws change, like the Human Rights Act, the Climate Change Act, which essentially outsourced decisions from Parliament, from ministers, to unelected technocrats and lawyers.
Right.
And those unelected technocrats and lawyers have proven not to be, generally speaking, on the side of Britain. Yeah. And we've seen this with the Chagos Islands case, which was pushed very, very hard by lawyers and senior officials in the civil service. We've seen it with the cozying up to China. Of course, I was there during the golden era, if you remember, when David Cameron had Xi Jinping to his local pub in Oxfordshire.
Right.
And
that was when he left one of his children behind, wasn't it?
I think he did. Yeah. He did leave Nancy Cameron behind. I don't think that was to do with the Chinese.
Well, no, but he was so enamoured with the Chinese kind of presence, though, that he forgot his kids.
And I think, to be fair, a lot of us thought, and I confess to this, that the more China got richer, the more free it would become.
Right.
And we bought into that narrative of, if China is allowed to trade with us, if Chinese citizens get richer, they're going to demand more freedom.
Yeah.
We've seen the opposite. And for me, the penny dropped when President Xi declared himself life president.
Yes.
Well, this is now not going in the right direction. We're seeing crackdowns in China. And it was becoming pretty clear to anybody who was paying attention that China had ambitions to usurp the West.
Yes.
And we saw that with the Belt and Road Initiative. We saw it with trying to get Huawei into our systems.
Yeah.
But I think by that stage, many people in the British system had actually become dependent on China.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with. And it's not just the system in the civil service, it's in the City of London, it's in our major corporations, and it's also in these international institutions like the United Nations, the World Bank.
Yeah.
The Chinese are now deeply, deeply embedded. And I think Trump is doing a heroic job of fighting this, because he is fighting, the Mark Carneys of this world, as well as the Chinese.
Well, do you remember when he was putting tariffs on the Chinese and people were saying, this is a terrible idea, this is going to ruin the world's economy? It actually didn't happen. The world's economy was not ruined by that. And China eventually had to kind of kowtow to what the Americans wanted.
Correct.
And he's the only person doing it.
And the biggest mistake was letting China into the World Trade Organization,
Yeah.
which is what Bill Clinton did. And in the 1990s, the Chinese economy was a tenth the size of the US economy.
Yeah.
And essentially what the US did was allow China to eat their lunch. That's what's happened.
Yeah.
And we're all worse off for it.
And
because
so do
we've
you
got a weaker America and a stronger China.
Yeah.
And that's not good for anybody
Yeah.
who loves freedom.
And for those of us who are kind of amateurs at this business of looking at world economies and things, and I count myself as one, you hear stories that in America, China owns an awful lot of America's debt, but we also hear that Britain owns quite a lot of China's debt. How does that all kind of make sense or work or could you explain it to ordinary sort of people watching this now going, we don't really understand all of that. It's all a bit macroeconomic.
Well, the West is very indebted. Our debts are at very serious levels now. Ours is 100% of GDP. And a lot of it is owed to China, which is extremely,
which is not a good place to
worrying.
be.
No, because they have leverage over us and they have leverage over the Americans. So the Americans are having to deal with a China that is in a strong position. And that is why they're constantly calibrating about the tariffs, etc. But I think we've got an administration in America who understand China is public enemy number one. In Britain, Keir Starmer seems to be oblivious to that. Although we now hear this morning that he's been selling out British soldiers, he's sold out British Islands. As I say, he is king of capitulation.
He is. So, I mean, we'll get to that story in a moment on the front page of the Telegraph, which I think is shocking, that he actually worked for free to prosecute British soldiers from Iraq to try and make them be found guilty of war crimes. But do you fear then that his trip to China on this mission is going to put Britain in an even worse place than it is today?
Yes. Yes, and he's not going to get anything out of it. The Chinese are famous for signing deals that they don't deliver on. Look at all the commitments they make at these climate change conferences, and then the next week they've built 10 more coal-fired power stations. You cannot trust a word they say or anything that's written on paper. And he is just having the wool pulled over his eyes. And I think he kind of knows that. I think he's just desperate. He's the most unpopular prime minister in British history. Things are not getting any better. He is clutching at straws for something that will somehow magically save the British economy, even though he's busy killing the British economy through things like net zero.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the front pages today. We've got Rachel Reeves being accused of killing the high street with this, ridiculous raising of business rates, which is not going to apply to hotels, or is going to apply to hotels and restaurants, but isn't going to apply to pubs. But there's something like 1,000 pubs.
What is the difference between a pub and a restaurant now? Because Most pubs you can get food.
Well, exactly.
So what is the difference?
And I said this the other day. I mean, if you're running a pub, surely you just, or you're running a restaurant, you just say, well, now it's a pub, and then you get the business rates relief. But the business rates relief is so minimal; it's £1,500 a year or something like that. And we've been talking to people who run pubs and who run, hospitality establishments, who say that their business rates are going up from something like £50,000 a year to £120,000 a year, and there's no rhyme or reason for it, and it's just literally putting them out of business. They can't afford to run.
Well, the rhyme or reason is
anymore.
this is a cash cow for the Treasury.
But except it won't be, because they'll shut the business down. They won't get anything. That seems to be the bit they don't get.
They don't get that. And this is the argument I always had with the Treasury, that and remember, I wanted to keep corporation tax at 18%, not raise it to 25%.
Right.
And the Treasury officials said, oh no, that's going to cost you 25 billion over 5 years. It wasn't true.
Right.
Because what we've seen since is that businesses have left Britain, they haven't set up shop because corporation tax is now uncompetitive. But the Treasury officials don't know that, and they don't care, because they're incentivised on next year's salary and getting the state to be bigger. They're not incentivised on the performance of British business.
Yeah.
So you've got these people in the Treasury, in the Office of Budget Responsibility, who fundamentally don't care about the health of the economy.
Right.
All they're trying to do is make the numbers add up. And they say, well, these pubs are an easy cash cow to get extra money out of. That's the mentality.
And going back to your time in Downing Street, presumably that was the mentality then. How difficult did you find it, even just kind of communicating with the Treasury and communicating with the Office of Budget Responsibility? What was your kind of, impression of what they were doing?
So I was a Treasury Minister for 2 years, so I knew all the Treasury officials, and I had meetings with them. We put together the mini budget with Kwasi. They didn't like it, but they accepted it was our decision.
Right.
The problem is that under George Osborne, the forecasting was outsourced to the Office of Budget Responsibility.
Right.
And what they say is, we're independent. We can't even talk to you about it.
Right.
We're just going to take your plans and say what we think they will deliver or not deliver.
Right.
And these people, they come from organisations like the Resolution Foundation, a left-wing think tank, so they believe ideologically that putting up taxes is going to raise more money.
Yeah.
So that is the problem. You've got people marking your homework who are ideologically opposed to what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And the only answer is to get rid of the OBR and actually appoint officials in the Treasury who understand economics. But we were, under Gordon Brown and under George Osborne, an entire system has been set up that protects these people and makes it very hard for them to be sacked. And in order to change that, you've got to pass primary legislation.
Yeah.
That's the situation we're in.
So
but the people in the Treasury are ideologically opposed to cutting taxes. That's the problem you've got.
Because they want to feed the beast, don't they? They just want the bigger government, more civil servants. Every single time
And
somebody
also,
comes to cut civil service jobs, they seem to end up with more people.
That's correct. And there was a piece in the press recently about some of the Treasury officials. These are people who went to university with people now in high-earning jobs like bankers. And frankly, they're jealous and envious of them.
Right.
They're stuck there in the Treasury. They think they're doing the right thing for the country. They're ideologically motivated to pursue left-wing policies, and they see their friends earning more money.
Right.
And they don't like it.
Right.
I think there's a lot of that going on.
So would you say, had it not been for the Office of Budget Responsibility, that you might have had more of a chance to make that budget work?
I would say the number one culprit is the Bank of England.
Yeah.
And in fact, in a report in 2024, the Bank of England said that 2/3 of the market crisis in 2022 was down to their failure to regulate the pensions industry properly.
Right.
And that's not including the fact that they announced the sale of £40 billion worth of government gilts the night before the mini-budget. So they've admitted that they created the crisis. It was never about the mini-budget. But it was convenient for everybody, the Labour Party, frankly, my enemies in the Conservative Party, as well as the economic establishment, to point the finger at me.
Right. And so now, though, when you look around the world's economy and certainly Britain's economy, things are an awful lot worse now than they were when you were in charge, aren't
Correct, because what I was saying at the time, and people describe my budget as tax cutting, it was mainly about not raising taxes. If you remember, Rishi Sunak had said, I want to raise taxes, corporation tax from 18 to 25%. We want to put this extra tax on the oil industry, the windfall tax.
Yeah.
I said, if you do that, you will make things worse. That was my whole strategy.
Right.
I tried to reverse it. I legalised fracking to try and make energy cheaper. All hell broke loose, mainly due to the Bank of England blaming me for their mistakes, but all hell broke loose. Now, those policies have been implemented, and sure enough, the debt has gone up. We've got the highest energy prices in the Western world. Our businesses are uncompetitive. The Treasury is having to squeeze organisations like pubs and restaurants because they've run out of money.
Yeah.
So yes, but it's very interesting to me that the mainstream media still don't want to report the fact the Bank of England admitted responsibility for what happened in 2022 and actually look at the situation now versus the situation then. And if you look at what the Trump administration is doing, which is cutting taxes, cutting regulation, drill baby drill, it's pretty much the same strategy I was following in Britain.
And they're
pretty
looking
much the same strategy.
And they're looking at growth
And by
rates
the way,
of about 5%
yeah,
now,
but,
right?
but organisations like the IMF were saying it will be a disaster for the American economy.
Yeah.
So you've got the same usual suspects, the Keynesians, in all these international institutions saying this is a disaster. But Trump has the political wherewithal to pursue this. He doesn't have a bunch of wet Tory MPs.
No. No, well, he's been able to appoint a team
Correct.
that he wanted
Correct.
to have around him,
Correct.
who will support him and who
Correct.
will absolutely endorse everything that he says. But interestingly enough, we've also got what you haven't mentioned yet is a chancellor in Rachel Reeves, who's more or less admitted lying to the public, more or less admitted lying to the Houses of Parliament, more or less admitted that she was in cahoots, if you like, with the Office of Budget Responsibility, who knew that she was lying. And who have also admitted that she was lying. And yet here we are, with her still in office, still doing damage and harm to the economy, with nobody seemingly willing to stop it.
But this is because the entire economic establishment and institutions are on her side.
Yeah.
You need people like the Governor of the Bank of England, Andrew Bailey, who has advocated for net zero, advocated for DEI.
Yeah.
Printed vast amounts of money that created inflation. You've got the OBR, which is heavily staffed by people from institutions like the IFS and the Resolution Foundation. You've got the IMF, which is basically a Keynesian institution. They're part of Rachel Reeves's network and worldview. I was the opposite of that. I was the antithesis to that. And they wanted to destroy me, but they also wanted to destroy any possibility of those policies happening.
Right. And so where do we go from here? Because, notwithstanding the Prime Minister's trip to China, when he gets back, whenever that is, the economy is still going to be...
They keep him there for a bit.
Well, that would be nice. I mean, I was saying yesterday, maybe if he was taking Rachel Reeves with him, maybe they could ruin China's economy while they were there, just in 24 hours. But, he comes back. The country is still in a dire state. The economy is absolutely in the toilet. And he's under threat from almost everybody else in the party. You've got Angela Rayner this morning on the front page of the Times saying, I'm not dead yet, wants to come back to the cabinet. Andy Burnham isn't finished yet, even though he would be just as hopeless. It's a mess, isn't it? It's just a complete disaster.
I think it's underpriced, though, that Keir Starmer stays on until 2029. Because whatever his many failings, he seems to have an ability to control the Labour Party. And he has managed to block Burnham.
Yeah. He has, but only for the moment, surely. He's probably going to lose the by-election up in Manchester.
But then which by-election could they win?
Yeah.
How many MPs have to resign?
Yeah, I know.
I think, given the state of the Labour Party, it's very difficult to see which by-elections they could win.
And so
it's a dangerous game for Burnham. I thought it was quite possible Burnham wouldn't have won the by-election.
Oh, well, I said...
And you might have seen George Galloway winning, for example.
Well, I actually said on Sunday when he was blocked, he's probably heaving a huge sigh of relief because if he had actually not been blocked, he would have had to run. He could have lost the by-election, and he wouldn't be mayor or an MP, and he would have been screwed.
Exactly.
So I think actually they did him a favour. Let's talk about your time in Prime Minister's office, though, because a lot of people have asked me, said, in the last couple of days, they knew you were coming on. They wanted to get more of a sort of human perspective on what it's like when you go into Downing Street for the first time, and suddenly you're in charge of the country. I mean, what was that actually like?
Well, first of all, if you remember, Her late Majesty the Queen died 2 days. So I don't think I had a normal...
You got the blame for that as well,
I don't think I had a normal...
You
I don't
did.
think I quite got the blame for that.
There were people going, oh my God, Liz Truss goes to see the Queen and she dies. I'm joking, obviously, but you kind of got the blame for everything, is what I'm saying.
It was a difficult time, and of course we had rampant inflation as well, and there was the Ukraine war. I think because I'd been a government minister for 10 years, I'd seen what it was like in Downing Street.
Right.
But still what shocked me going in is really the lack of the ability of the Prime Minister to get things done. And just first of all, the extent to which the organisation operates in the same way as it had in the 19th century.
Right.
It's essentially a townhouse
Yeah.
with officials that are, intelligent people, don't get me wrong, but the power lies in places like the Treasury or the Home Office, et cetera, et cetera. And on these decisions like the mini budget, it was a hell of an effort to even get that mini budget into existence because of the resistance of the system to it.
Right.
That is what I saw. But what really shocked me is just how, even as Prime Minister, the so-called independent institutions like the Bank of England were prepared to undermine me directly.
Right.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
The day after, or the week, after the weekend after the mini budget, we had the Bank of England governor blaming me and Kwasi for what had happened in the markets, even though he felt full well that it was his failure to regulate LDIs.
Right.
And I think we've developed a system, and this mainly happened under Tony Blair, with things like the Human Rights Act, the Bank of England Act, the Constitutional Reform Act, where the Prime Minister no longer has the ability to really run the country anymore. That's how seriously bad it's got.
Okay. And when did you realise that was the situation? I mean, not just after the weekend.
I'd always been frustrated by the system all the way through being a government minister, and I had endless battles on everything from education to the trade deals that I did as trade secretary to the sanction regime in the foreign. I'd had to fight the entire time.
Right.
And we also had a lot of wets in the Conservative Party who just didn't want to change. They didn't want to challenge international law. They didn't want to challenge the Human Rights Act. They didn't want to take on the welfare state. They didn't want to do anything about the Climate Change Act. So I had all those people. So it's hard to distinguish how much of it is my own colleagues who are just being wet and how much of it is a system that really just doesn't want to do this stuff. When I got to number 10, I could see how clearly the system was really against what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
That's what I sort of knew about it, but I felt it at a visceral level. I kind of understood why my predecessors hadn't really done anything.
Right.
Because it was fatal.
Yeah.
It was fatal.
Yeah. And so how do you change that? I mean, if you were to sort of be given a brush to completely reinvent the way Downing Street works, the way the government works, I mean, what would you have to do?
Well, first of all, I think more power needs to lie directly with the Prime Minister. So power over legal issues, power over spending. So the American president has the Office of Management and Budget. That's what the Prime Minister needs. They should be able to dictate the spending for departments. It shouldn't be the Treasury. Treasury is far too powerful at the moment. We need to repatriate the powers that were given to the Bank of England by Gordon Brown.
Yeah.
Those need to be put back into the Treasury. So the Chancellor is accountable for monetary and fiscal policy. At the moment, Rachel Reeves isn't really responsible for very much.
No.
Because the Office of Budget Responsibility runs fiscal policy and the Bank of England runs monetary policy. What is she being paid for? Apart from to do some not very good interviews about pubs.
Yeah, right.
You know,
and to tell everybody she's an economist.
But so those powers need to be repatriated. And all of those things require an act of Parliament. At the same time, the senior officials who have presided over Britain's decline need to be replaced.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. And
or does the system need to be replaced? You know, rather like America, where the new president comes in and hundreds of people get fired and other hundreds of people come in who work effectively as the new civil service.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do. And I think it will be very hard to change the country unless you do that. Because there are some good people in the civil service, don't get me wrong, but they are embedded
There's an awful lot of them, though, isn't there?
Well, there's 2.5 million?
Yeah.
There's 2.5 million people.
Right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, some of those people are working in the welfare office in Dumbarton or whatever,
Right.
but, there's an awful lot.
Well, I think I was
based in
given a
Whitehall.
figure, I think it was last year when I was looking into it, that just in the press departments alone, of all of the various different civil service departments, there's something like 24,000 PRs just handling press inquiries.
But also
24,000.
lots of people don't, because the power is distributed across the government, there are lots of fiefdoms.
Yeah.
So there are these so-called independent quangos, there are over 400 of them.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what anybody else is doing.
Yeah.
So they all suffer from the same left-wing groupthink. They believe in transgender ideology,
Yeah.
climate change. They're all part of the network of black civil servants, whatever.
Right.
But they don't necessarily know what each other are doing. So it's both inefficient and ideologically captured.
Yes. Well, I discovered at the weekend, purely by accident.
It's really like, honestly, leaving government feels like escaping a prison in some ways.
Absolutely.
Because as a minister, your every act is monitored. Your every... you can't really have dinner with random people without people knowing about it.
Right.
You're constantly being surveilled.
Right.
You're being
Your
held,
life is no longer your own, in other
and you're
words.
being held to account by the... So one of the things about the Chagos Island is the ministerial code says that ministers have to follow international law.
Right.
And international law, presided over by the pretty corrupt International Court of Justice at the UN, has given an advisory judgment that Britain has to hand over the Chagos Islands. So this is one of the many things Conservatives didn't change. Why on earth did we have a ministerial code that said ministers have to follow international law?
Yeah, it's mad. It doesn't make any sense at all.
But this is just one of many aspects of an entire system that essentially creates a web around ministers that you're I was constantly trying to break out of it to actually do the right thing.
Right.
But it's a struggle.
It is.
And my view is you need to go back to square one, start the system from scratch.
Strip it all
down.
down.
It just does not work.
Right.
It just does not work.
Well, we've been talking about my dog Ziggy today because it's his 12th birthday. But we discovered at the weekend there's a set of woods called Battle Great Woods, where we've been taking him for 12 years. They've now decided to put a parking charge on it, right? So I sort of looked into who was responsible for this. Turns out there's a thing called the Forestry Commission, which is a non-voting sort of department of something or other. And I looked into their budget. Their budget for the staffing has doubled in the last 3 years, from 54 million to something like 120 million. And you're going, well, what do you do exactly? Oh, we run the Forestry Commission. We run a load of woods. Right, okay. But of course, they're infested with green ideology. So it's all about, rewilding.
But do you remember?
They then run, hang on a minute, they then run Forestry England, which is a quango, which is full of people with hundreds of more millions being spent on it. And they then feed money into the Woodland Trust, which is a charity. And so there's this sort of three-tier system for running a bunch of woods. And you think, well, that surely is an allegory for what's wrong with Britain, isn't it?
Correct. And if you remember, there was an attempt to have a bonfire of the quangos back in 2012. And the reason it was kiboshed was because of the Forestry Commission.
Was it?
Because there was a massive campaign saying, don't get rid of our forests.
Wow.
So the left were able to weaponise the idea of forests being a good thing to stop the entire bonfire of the Quangos.
I didn't
And
know
Caroline Spellman, do you not remember?
I remember her,
when
yeah.
she resigned
Yes.
over the whole issue,
Mm.
or maybe she got sacked. I can't remember.
Right.
But the point is, this is what the left do.
Yeah.
So if you ever try and get rid of the Human Rights Act, there'll be no more human rights in Britain.
Right.
Or you try and get rid of the Climate Change Act, it's like you are going to kill the planet.
Yes.
And this is the right have to wise up to not responding to this stuff and not taking any of it seriously.
Yeah, because
but unfortunately, that the story of 14 years of Conservative government is the right kowtowed to all these left-wing
well, I mean, that
campaigners.
is exactly. I mean, did you know, for example, in that 14-year period, that the Conservative Party was being sort of hollowed out by the Wets and by the Lib Dem aspect of the party and by the people who wanted green economy to be the one guiding light. I mean, Boris Johnson was a huge supporter of that, wasn't he?
He was.
And
There are some things I agree with Boris about, and there are
Yeah.
some things I don't.
Mm.
And probably the two things I don't agree are net zero and China.
Yes. But I mean,
And also the Boris wave of immigration was a massive mistake.
But the hollowing out of the Tory party, because I'm going to ask you about that. I know you've been here quite a long time already, but don't worry, we've got another 10 minutes.
And I have to talk about my show as well, Mike.
We need to talk about your show, which I was on yesterday, which is going out later on. We need to talk about your show because we need to talk about what you're doing now. Do you, like many people on the right, think that the Conservative Party is dead and buried? Do you also have an eye on reform? Nigel Farage was asked the other day at press conference with Suella Braverman if he was going to accept your possible offer to work with reform. I mean, where are you on all of that?
I'm enjoying not being party political at the moment. My show, the Liz Truss Show, which people can watch on YouTube, Rumble, X.
Yes.
All of the
and
audio
streamed in
stations.
America, I understand.
It's streamed in America as well.
Yeah.
It's on radio in America as well. Yeah. The whole point of the show is to expose and talk about what is wrong with Britain and how can we fix it and what needs to change. And political journalism and economic journalism, in my view, has completely failed.
Yeah.
They have failed to analyse what has gone wrong with our country. They never held governments to account over things like the impact of the Human Rights Act, the impact of net zero, which have a disastrous effect on issues like immigration and the economy. Instead, they like to run a pantomime about Robert Jenrick or Suella Braverman or what's going on with Andy Burnham.
Right.
That is the entire oxygen and bandwidth is taken up with that kind of chit-chat. Meanwhile, the civil servants who are actually running Britain, the Andrew Baileys of this world, the Ollie Robbins who run the Foreign Office, they get no scrutiny at all.
Right.
See, what my show is about talking about the underlying system and structure that has led this country to the decline that we are now in.
Right.
And I want the freedom to talk about that. And I don't want to be held to account as part of a political party. At the moment, I don't rule out doing political stuff in the future, but what I found at Downing Street is so much of the problem was being created by the mainstream media.
Yeah.
They were the people making a massive hoo-ha about what the gilt rate was, what the pound was. All of those indicators have been worse under Rachel Reeves.
Yeah.
But they're not running 24-hour coverage. They're not. They don't have their tents planted outside, on College Green.
Right.
And the media have been such a part of the problem of why this country is in a serious mess and why we've got an elite that are completely out of touch with ordinary people in our country. So that's why I want to do what I'm doing.
And we talked about this a little bit on your show, as I say, which goes out on Friday for people to look out for, about how there's a sort of class of people in Britain who have all gone to the same universities, who have all done the same kind of degrees, who have ended up at very high levels in the media and in politics and in the civil service. And it's all very chummy, I think, it seems to me.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to ask the wrong question. They don't want to be pointed at, as you say, and be told that you're bad, you're right-wing, you're horrible, you're nasty. They all want to be sort of accepted. And so they have to have this kind of belief system, which is, well, we quite like migrants, it's quite good to have immigration, it's quite good to, be fair to trans people, all of this rubbish that most ordinary people in Britain just don't agree with,
But often they're forced to go along with it. So you've seen this horrific cases of these nurses who've had these perverts essentially in their changing rooms.
Yeah.
And it's been imposed on them by the elite class within the NHS or within the hospital, saying, you've got to put up with this crap.
Right.
I mean, it's astonishing.
It is. And it's become normalised. But again, for most ordinary people, that's not their experience of life at all. You know, they get up in the morning, they go to work, they don't get paid very much. You know, they're struggling now, they're paying more tax than they've ever paid. Everything's costing more. They don't get to go on holiday very much. They worry about their kids.
So why is it costing more? Let's go back to one of my favourite subjects, the Bank of England.
Yeah.
The Bank of England printed huge amounts of money after the financial crisis and after COVID.
Yeah.
Many of the major banks were not held to account for their failings.
Right.
The costs were pushed onto the taxpayer. We've seen a huge rise in asset prices as a result, which has made it pretty impossible for young people to get on the housing ladder, to have a family. Where's the accountability?
Right.
Where's, Mark Carney or Andrew Bailey being questioned about how they have shafted an entire generation of Brits?
And where is the accountability for people like Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer when you get these kind of, rather laudatory columns written in various newspapers about how relationships with China are going to be improved by Keir Starmer going to China? When people are going, yeah, well, hang on a minute, but I can't, buy a new coat for my son to go to school. I can't buy him any new shoes because it's too expensive. They're not asking the right questions, are they?
But also, the people that are going to benefit from this Chinese deals, if it comes around, are the elites who live in London, the home counties, Oxford and Cambridge. These are the people who are going to do well out of these stuff. They're going to get board positions. They're going to get the Chinese investment. It's not people living in Wigan.
No.
It's not people living in Rotherham. And this class of people are just increasingly out of touch. There's been quite a few studies recently showing that people, particularly vote Liberal Democrat, which is the sort of heart of these characters, they don't think there's anything wrong with Britain. They think everything's fine.
Oh, they
and
keep
they
telling us
live
that
in
crime's
They
not-
basically live in a gated community. They're not affected by illegal migration. They've got a comfortable job in the corporate or public sector, where we've seen public sector salaries are going up faster than private sector salaries. So they're all right, Jack.
Yeah.
And that's
they're all
the
busy
entire
telling us-
mentality of these people that read the Times or watch the BBC.
And they're all saying as well that, you're a bad person, you must be right-wing and crazy if you think that crime is worse now than it was in the 1970s. I lived in the 1970s, and I can tell you I've lived in London pretty much all my life, apart from some time in New York and a couple of other places. But, London has never been more dangerous for me, and London has never been more unruly and completely and utterly kind of unfettered by the police. People, you can walk out of this office right now, this studio, and you will see, if you walk from here to Parliament, which is not very far, you'll probably see at least 2 crimes being committed before you get there. And that is a reality. But if you say it, apparently it's because you're right-wing and you don't like Sadiq Khan, and you must be a racist.
I think we need to own the term right-wing.
Yeah.
The word centre-right, I find, is the heart of the kind of capitulation of the Tory right. So it's like,
well, what
we
about
want a
that?
good
Ruth
centre.
Davidson
We want a good
outfit.
centre-right party. No, what's wrong with being right-wing?
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
No
nothing
lefty
wrong.
would say, I'm centre-left, would they?
No, of course not. Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, listen, I'm being told we have to wrap it up because, it's been brilliant to have you here. Liz,
It's been great to be on the show.
for taking so much time. Your show, The Liz Truss Show, out on Friday. You also do a couple of other podcasts during the week.
We do some audio podcasts, the
Okay.
Liz Truss Show Extra, one coming tonight on the Chagos Islands.
Okay, very good. You hope, one final question, is that deal scuppered, do you think? Do you think it's done and dusted?
I think it is scuppered, but it's going to create a seizure within the British government because their whole internal logic is we have to follow international law.
Right.
So what on earth are they going to do?
Right, except when they go to China, of course, they don't have to follow international law then. Liz, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. That was Liz Truss. This is, of course, the Mike Graham Show. We're going to do a bit of news before we leave you. Thank you very much indeed for watching today. We are here every single day, 7 to 9:30 now. We've got 2.5 hours for you every single morning live. Plank of the Week on a Friday, of course, as well. Let's get a news update with Edward Hughes.
Good morning. Here is the news for today, Wednesday, 28th of January. I'm Edward Hughes, suffering a bit after a big night last night. Britain is still reeling from Storm Chandra, the third monster storm to slam us this January. Torrential rain smashed January records. Rivers burst banks. Flash floods swamped Devon and the southwest. Roads vanished underwater. Trains ground to a halt. And police are begging people, don't travel unless you absolutely have to. If you're in the West Country, stay high and dry. It's chaos out there. Meanwhile, Prime Minister two-tier Keir Starmer...
Yeah, we've had enough of old Edward Hughes because, quite frankly, he's getting a bit boring. So he can get lost. Who's your favourite dictator? That was the poll today. Kim Jong-un, 20%. Meghan Markle, 15%. President Xi, 6% only. And Keir Starmer, winner with 59%. The great dictator. That's what he is. This is Mike Graham saying cheerio. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Thanks very much to Liz Truss. Thanks to all of you. We'll see you there.